scenes. And we up.
All right.
All right. Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's gonna be a little laggy due to the Twitch I guess stream together feature. So bear with us as we get everything set up
Mm-hmm.
here. But yeah. Today joining me is yeah, I say a fellow content creator, so to speak. It is RPS FGC, the creator of the Speed of Multiversus, and other fighting games. I believe it was titled something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And the video
Yeah, yeah.
essay was kind of detailing the intricacies of speed in both platform fighters, traditional fighters, etc., and kind of like why Multiverses is going for that slower pace, right? I overall thought the video was pretty decent, pretty solid, especially in terms of editing. Thought it was great in that regard. However, and I feel like a lot of people in the comments might have already called it out. There were some issues in
Yeah.
terms of some of the fighting
Yeah.
game talk. Now on the melee side, I won't personally speak for that. I'll let the melee fans do their thing. Melee fans can get crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get called the crossfire melee fans. Okay, I have left that
Mm-hmm.
scene. But in the traditional fighting game side, there is definitely a lot of stuff that I clocked and picked up, and I think we can offer some unique
Mm-hmm.
perspective because as a player, I was one of the people that played Smash Ultimate heavy, Smash 4 especially heavy, and as I grew up, I kind of transitioned over to traditional fighting games such as Street Fighter 6, which is like the biggest one now. I played a lot of Marvel's Capcom 3, Dragon Ball Fighters, etc. So especially seeing like the MVC 3 segment, I was like, you know what I mean? Lot of sucking teeth, lot of like, wait a second. So
Mm-hmm.
first, before we roll into kind of the debate against slow, fast gameplay in a platform fighter or multiverses in this case, do you have any like misconceptions you want to clear up or like things you wish you could kind of change or do better?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A lot
Okay.
of people recognized a lot of flaws in the videos initially. There. Oh god. And I'd really like to just address a lot of them because I'll be the first to admit the
Mm.
video, the way I articulated a lot of my points in that video and the stuff that I used to back it up was ass. It was. I could have done a lot better job of just
Okay.
making my point a lot more clear. The first and like most blatant one that comes to mind, and I'll be addressing like all the little or the important criticisms that I feel like I just either straight up got wrong or maybe I didn't articulate the right way or say it the right way or
Right.
didn't elaborate that it was on a spectrum either, because like for
That's
example,
true.
you could say that Street Fighter 5, Street Fighter 4 is like a slow game relatively speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're always gonna have characters like Cammy, like these people who are like prone to opening you up. But the number one thing I really want to address and
Okay.
the worst quote I probably had in the entire video is
Okay.
saying that in Street Fighter, the defender is the one with the advantage.
Oh my
Blatantly
gosh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I was about to say.
yeah, yeah. That was not what I meant to say at all, and I should have phrased it better.
Right.
There is, and we'll get into exact here. Let me check my notepad. Uh,
Okay.
but obviously that is almost never the case in any fighting game ever. If you are getting hit, usually you're at a disadvantage, whether you're
Right.
blocking it or not. Uh, that's I have played one game where that's not the case. So Smash 4 dash blocking was very, very popular.
Okay.
So much,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
I
much,
agree. I agree.
yes, yeah, so much so that like the defensive option was so good it became the aggressive option too. So it's like,
Right. Right.
I see.
Give me one
Let's
quick sec
see.
before we dive in. We're getting some
Hmm.
interesting like lag here on my end. I don't know if it's a
Okay.
internet issue or PC. I'm assuming it's the latter.
Hmm.
Um, let's try this. I don't know if you have the stream up on the side. Let's try swapping back over to the Discord, and I'm gonna pull your cam through
Okay.
that. Just because it's really
Okay.
laggy. I don't want to butcher both of the potential videos
Hmm.
out of this. Yeah, I'm content
Yeah, yeah.
brained. So yeah, let me
I
set that up
get
real
you.
quick. You guys will still be able to
All
hear it.
right.
Just give us a sec to reset. I'm so sorry about the lag.
Mm-hmm.
TLDR, it's not ready. The software is not ready. I don't know why Twitch is forced or keeps shoving it
Mm-hmm.
down our throats. That joint is not that joint's not ready. I see you up on
Mm-hmm.
Discord. Let me full screen here, and we'll be set. Yeah, so sorry about that, but it's all good. These things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, game window 2 here. Yeah,
Also, don't worry.
there is some lag.
I am going to continue to address some of the other stuff that You know, I
I'm holding you
that was just
to it.
one of the many things.
Oh, this is so much smoother,
Uh,
right, chat?
all right, all right.
Yeah, there we go. I'm
Are
so
we
sorry about
good?
that, guys. Yeah, we're good. All good.
All right. Okay. Another thing I wanted to talk about is I feel
Mm.
like I a lot more heavily emphasized that I think I said that whiff punishing was much more important in slow games, which
Mm.
I feel like was not doing my point justice. I think that there is, but it's a lot more nuanced.
Right.
For example, of course, whip punishing is always going to exist in both, and it's going to be a core gameplay feature of both. If you get whip punished in,
Absolutely.
yeah, because like when you get whip punished in melee, you're still gonna get like the crazy advantage state that it's not like it's de-emphasized or anything. They exist in both, but I think the thing how I wanted to phrase it was that it's more in the core gameplay of slower games because there's less ways to open up your opponent on defense. So a lot of your bigger
Right.
buttons and bigger confirms are going to be off of those like whip punishing stuff. So there's like an emphasis on doing significant damage there. Whereas like in aggressive game or in fast-paced games, there's like alternative ways to open up your opponent aside from just whip
Right.
punishing them. You can
Y-
still whip punish and you still will get massive damage off of it,
of
but
course.
there's alternate ways to do that, and that
Yeah.
inherently emphasizes it less, I guess, is what I wanted to say in that.
Right,
Uh,
right. That it's funny you bring that up because I was actually like one of the main points I was gonna talk about, like from a tag game perspective, is like just because you have access to other ways to open players up, say like the 8-way dash, flying, etc.,
mhm,
doesn't necessarily de-emphasize or say, hey, well the game's putting more emphasis on this. Like to me, as a tag fighting player, it's the exact opposite because it's like
mhm,
you have to be super precise in your neutral, and like and if you watch a lot of the people that grew up playing Blaze Blue Cross Tag, Dragon Ball Fighters, and they transitioned to more
mhm,
traditional games like Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, or which is like considered very neutral heavy, Footsie's God game as everyone
mhm,
called it back when it came out, or even games like a Street Fighter 6. Some of them transitioned to. They are the best players right now, and it's because
mhm,
they grew up in a like volatile TOD. Like you have to be frame perfect. You have to be exactly precise, all of that jazz, right? And these games aren't necessarily,
mhm,
I would argue, fast, and they emphasize, slowing it down, especially as they raise defensive options as patches came around.
mhm,
But it was like, I didn't agree. Basically, I don't know about that.
mhm.
Especially coming from the games that I grinded.
Yes, yes. I think that is still very important in both. But
Oh yeah.
like I said, the reason why I said it emphasized it, I suppose, is
Hmm.
because that was like I said, one of the primary ways of like dealing significant damage and starting your advantage state. Whereas like in
Right.
other games, you can follow in off of an assist. You can like I'm trying to think of a good example. Oh, you said you play Dragon Ball Fighters, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You remember season two?
Yeah. Snap meta. That's what we called it.
Snap meta.
Yeah. Snap
Yep,
meta.
yep.
Yep.
That's that was um that was one of the biggest ways you would do significant damage in that. That was like the only way to get real mix because the defense was so strong, right?
Yeah, to an extent, yes. I think Lord and I just put
Mm-hmm.
out a video kind of discussing that, but yeah, that's a very good point. Defense in that game was very very OD in
Mm-hmm.
season 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's basically what I was trying to say whenever it comes to that I really wanted to cover is that
Mm,
it's on a spectrum, right? It's not like whip punishing is just not going to exist in a faster paced game. There'll always be whip punishing, and I'll get more into that here in a little bit.
okay, for sure.
But that's just one of the main things I wanted to like address as far as, criticism with the video. And
Right.
the last little things that I just want to, and I will answer more of the issues with my own video throughout
Okay.
throughout this stream, but I just want to acknowledge that the criticism of the video was very well warranted. There was a lot of people who had, who were really quick to point out that I got some I overgeneralized a lot and got some details wrong.
Yeah.
Um, and I can acknowledge that it was just a terrible video, it was terribly
Yeah.
written, and
Yeah. I was
I
like, don't be
can
too harsh.
yeah, I can there was a lot I could improve on.
Right, and that's the
So yeah.
journey as a content creator
Mhm.
too. Like, just not to like to be that guy, but like to kind of get into a little my own stuff, because everyone sees me as like the ultimate multiversus hater. I'm like, I can understand that I should have maybe levied more like positive
Mhm.
critique, so to speak, like from my own perspective as someone who's been in that realm, where it's like maybe I shouldn't
Mhm.
just go completely hard on monetization and some of my personal gripes with like how the riffs are done, etc. Because
Mhm.
it when people hear like just negative, like it detracts from some of the things, and also like some of the aspects I point towards the community. Like, I am not a big fan of the community scene and like how they've moved. I
Mhm.
think they are very. I don't want to say. I mean, I'm just gonna. It's a little cult like. These guys kind of like.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's
Mhm.
MVS or bust. But I'm learning now. Oh, the reason why is they've never played a platform fighter before. Like, they don't have comparisons. So I was like, oh, I get it now. Like, at first I was like, I don't know why these guys are like willing to die on the hill of their favorite WB characters. Like, it's WB. I thought everyone hated that company. But now I'm learning, like, wait a second. They like, this is their first game that they're getting good at. Like, I understand the first fighting game like feeling, right? So I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm kind of dunking on, like, in a way, even if it's not directly targeted towards them, it's indirectly hurting them, because like it's their first game, they're feeling really good at it, and it's like, dang, this is how I'm getting treated. I'm like, you know what, that sucks. You're right, my fault, bro.
Mhm.
I'll hold that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to also mention that like a big part of the video that I felt like got really misconstrued is that I'm not trying to say Multiversus is like the perfect game or even a good game by that standards. It could
Okay,
use a lot of
okay.
work.
We on that
Um
copium, I feel it.
yeah, it
i'm
could
i'm,
use
I'm there with you.
a lot of work.
Right.
The main point of my channel though is like you said, there's a lot of like criticism against the game, and it kind of sours the taste of the community. It makes people not really
Mm.
want like I'll get like notifications on my phone all the time from like the
Mm-hmm.
Reddit of like people
Oh, don't get
saying
me started.
yeah, people saying like this game's actually fun when you don't have people screaming in your ear that it's a bad game over and over
Mm-hmm.
again.
Yeah, and now those posts take over, but like the posts that are
Mm-hmm.
actually genuine critiques, like, oh, we don't want to hear it, even though they'll put
Um,
tweets out talking about like
yeah,
actual critiques we want to see. I'm like, well, here's the critiques, and they're like, nah,
yeah,
we don't want to hear it, and I'm like,
I
we're all trying to see the game in a better light. Like, your video,
mhm,
that's a really good way of like handling the game. Like, hey, I'm just offering perspective as to why the game speed changed. Respect,
mhm,
right? Like, that's a really healthy way. That's a valid critique. That's a valid look into, maybe the answer isn't, oh, we have to, devalue speed, which we'll talk about the speed of MVS later. But like,
mhm,
there's different answers to the question, right? Rather than just either
yeah,
blindly defending it or blindly hating it just because you want to see like something fell, which I've never really been on the camp of. Like, I don't want to see a game just die. It's funny
yeah,
to joke about it on Twitter, by the way. But like, I don't want to see a game just die. I'm not actually no one. I'm not actually like waking up, getting showered, coming out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see thousands of people lose their job. Like, no,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not fun. Like, I'm in the industry. And as I've told a lot of people, if MVS fails, like, what does that mean for people like Void, people like Nicat, people like me? Like,
mhm,
I want to make content on this game. I want to talk about this game. I want to go to tournaments. I want to meet people. I want to host my own tournaments and do brackets
mhm,
and stuff. And I don't think people clock how frustrating it is as the guy that has to like run those things, like set up the stuff that you guys
yeah,
care about, and
mhm,
the dev slash publisher to be more effective,
mhm,
because it's WB. A lot of this is WB. Their response is, oh, no spectator mode on launch.
mhm,
Like, how am I supposed
yeah,
to, how am I supposed to help out?
yeah. It's definitely frustrating as a fan working with Player First and WB especially, right?
Oh yeah, it's
Um,
WB.
yeah, but I think for me at least, and the big thing that I wanted to do with my channel, especially on launch, I plan on eventually shifting over to other fighting games because I'm RPS FGC. I'm not just
Yeah.
RPS MVS, right?
Right,
And I
right.
do play a lot of other fighting games as well. Even though my last video you might not think I did.
Okay, I'm not
But,
gonna lie. I low-key thought like you just started as MVS was coming out just off of the last video. I'm not gonna lie. Like, that's full transparency. I'm like, okay, new to
yeah,
the FGC, you're making dope
yeah,
videos. I ain't finna get too mad. I get it. And
yeah.
like I said, I was in the exact same boat. Like, that's exactly how I
Mhm,
was talking when I first
mhm,
started getting into FGC stuff.
mhm. Yeah, no, I think that I have been in the FGC for a while, and I'm familiar
Right.
with a lot of the terms and a lot of the flow of how those games work. I'm master with Marissa in Street Fighter
Okay. Oh
Five.
my gosh, another Marissa player. They're everywhere I look.
Yeah,
I
I got to heaven with Soul. I'm like
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
competent enough, right?
Right, right.
Um, but Yeah, I think a big thing with my channel though is, the reason why okay, I'll start with the first point. The reason that I've made the channel was to help balance out the negative critique, not to dismiss it, because
Exactly.
the negative critique is important, right?
Hmm.
But I didn't see anyone else like praising the good things that Multiversus was able to do with their game. And I have another
Right.
video coming out later this month talking about how cool I think the cooldowns are. A lot of people think like when they think cooldowns in fighting games, they're like, that's so lame. Why can't I just press my button when I want to press my button? So I'm working on a
Mm.
video talking about all the cool things that Multiversus cooldowns provides and all
Okay.
the like the creative things that the game allows people to do. So,
Right.
I like to bring focus to the stuff that is awesome about the game, the stuff that I love about the game that isn't really seen in that many other fighting games. And once again, not to dismiss the criticism because the criticism is very valid.
Exactly. But it's like
Uh,
why kind of add on when there's already enough people covering it too?
yeah,
That's another
yeah.
big thing.
The
No, I feel
reason
that.
why the reason why I guess die on the hill of multiverses isn't
Hmm.
because I think it is like better than the other games by any means. I mean, I've been an ultimate player for 5 years, and before that I played Smash 4 competitively. I've been to Melee tournaments. I've been to Street Fighter tournaments. I won my locals in my Street Fighter tournaments.
Okay.
Uh I've been to Guilty Gear tournaments. I've gotten top 3 at my Guilty Gear locals usually.
Okay.
Um, the and so on and so forth. I'm not too versed with the tag fighter, so I'm hoping you can kind of bring more
Oh,
light.
I was like,
Yeah,
I have a
yeah,
whole slide dedicated.
yeah,
'Cause we're still
yeah,
gonna talk about the combat section. We gotta talk
hmm
about the speed and aggression and
yeah,
stuff because
yeah,
I have a very interesting perspective on it as someone
hmm
who's like playing the hyper aggressive fighting games in
hmm
quotes.
yeah. But
Um,
the reason I die on the hill for multiverses is really just the team play, right?
yes,
I've
yes.
stated multiple times on my channel that I plan to cover 2XKO whenever it comes out because I love the team play.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my best friend and duo partner, Jazz, we were really just looking for a fighting game that could help where we could help motivate each other to keep playing
To
because
keep getting
like
better, yeah.
yeah, and obviously you can always play against your friends to keep getting better and better, but there's always that tension, and if you want to play on your own, there's always that like you guys know what
Yeah, I was
ranked anxiety is
I
like,
think
right?
that's a really excellent example to bring up because I think about
Hmm.
this often too. I talk about it on my streams. I haven't had a chance to talk about it on the channel. But one of my biggest pet peeves with
Hmm.
I guess this is a FGC community issue. Is everyone saying that you need a rival, you need a rival, you need a rival, like someone to help like best you to make you get better and better. And I'm like, but when I was in Smash, when I was in that circle, it was never really rivalries. It was more so like, oh well, everyone was like helping each other out, scratching each other's back, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Well, here's the tech I
Hmm.
found. Why'd you find that tech? You go through the hoops of that. Not like, well, this is my
Hmm.
tech. Anime scene is literally notorious
Hmm.
for hiding tech for years until
Yeah,
they pull it
yeah,
out of the national and be like, here's the new stuff, everyone. Like that's how the scene used to move. You know what
yeah.
I mean? And these fellas are like, you need a rival. I'm like, well, do we? And now we're getting games like 2XKO. There was Tekken. Well, sorry, Street Fighter Cross Tekken for a little bit, which I thought was still to this day mad underrated. Someone needs to talk about why
Mm-hmm.
that game was actually be me. But that game was so underrated. It's so slept on. And it did a lot to push things forward, and it was just held back by the esportsification of the scene, which is a whole topic
Hmm.
for another day. And now we're getting games like Multiversus and 2XKO, and I'm like, it's obvious that clearly someone at the top, right? These publishers, these creatives of the games of the fighting game genre have clocked and realized, wait a second, cooperation is definitely the king to pushing this genre forward. And
Yeah.
slowly but surely, we're seeing more and more things come out about it, and I think it's great. I think it's dope.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it briefly, but you guys who are watching know what ranked climbing anxiety is, right? Where
Yeah,
it's like
that joint
hard.
sucks.
Yeah, it's hard to motivate yourself to boot up rank because you're like, am I ready? And there's like a lot of pressure on whether you win or lose, even though it's like made up points. It's you still
Hmm.
like feel the pressure, and you can argue that it pushes you to do better and it pushes you to like really make sure that you're locked in at all times.
Right.
But it takes a mental toll on you, and it's a lot easier when you have a teammate. When someone's able to hit you
Mm.
up and they're like, "You ready to grind?" It like not only makes your losses you kind of like share the pain with your losses,
Right.
right? And it's
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
less mentally taxing, and overall, that's like the main reason I probably would die on the hill of
I get
multiverses if
you.
I had to. Yeah. All right.
Right.
So,
Right.
but yeah, that
You
was
feel
like,
that in a lot of games? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm in the
yeah.
same boat to kind of steer the ship, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I'm dealing with right now in modern fighting games, it's a twofold issue. The first issue is a lot of games are out right now that I do not feel like playing. Tekken 8, it's cool, I enjoy it, it's a fun game. I do not feel the grind necessary as I used to because like I'm getting a little bit older. I also just like rather talking about stuff and watching tournaments and watching high level play than going to be the high level player as I've gotten slightly older, whatever, so to speak. I'm only 23, but leave me alone. But the point is like these games are still fun. They're still dope. But they're also all one on one. Like Street Fighter 6,
Yeah.
cool. But they're one on one. The issue I have, which is a ton of a separate topic but kind of related, they're all one on one, but they have tag game elements. A lot of these games move and have aggressive, styles that are very, very similar to the genre that has essentially been kind of put to the back burner for now until Riot comes out with their thing. And it's weird, it's weird. It feels like I'm in a half state or Half-Life state, of potential, I guess like wanting to push myself to the next level, So it's kind of going back to what you say. When Multiversus came out, I was like, we were already a pretty big fan of it. Me and my duo Echo Zoo, we enjoyed the game quite a bit. It was one of the few platform fighters that we were like grinding, and we were usually got to start with that, and we had a lot of fun. We did pretty good. I think we got to, was it Gold 2s or something around that range, either Gold or the one after Gold Platinum. I don't know. I don't remember how the ranks were distributed, but whatever was towards the back end of Gold and beginning of the rank after, that's about where we stopped. And I was like, okay, pretty solid. We enjoyed it quite a bit. Obviously the game goes offline, it comes back, and the first thing we clocked was like, okay, the speed's a little different. It's a little different. And it's a lot more deliberate. In twos, mind you, I don't mind it. By the way, I think twos is still functions very well. But here's the big kicker or the big kicker that's the issue when it comes to talking about MVS. There's two sides of the fandom too.
Yes.
There's the twos enjoyers, which is how the game should be played, by the way, and then there's the ones enjoyers. And unfortunately, one crowd is not the vocal minority; they are the majority, and they push that joint so far. And the game was like, I don't want to say never, but it's not. I don't say not supposed to. Whatever, I'm gonna say it. It's not supposed to be played that way, okay? The character and the kits and the way they're designed to me and like in my brainwaves, it doesn't feel like it's meant for a 1v1 centric title. It feels very, very difficult. It gets very scrambly. I get major Smash 4 flashbacks in everyone's Bayonetta. That's the best way to explain MVS ones to me. Everyone's rolling around at max speed. We hit you with the ladder combo, you die off the top, and you get teabagged, and then we do the salt taunt, and then we do the dance again, and then I win, or you lose, or whatever. And then you either one and done because you don't want that smoke, or or we rematch, and the same thing happens because I have your patterns. There's no time to adapt. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if it's a ones issue or what, but I don't know. There's something about ones and MVS that just doesn't speak to me. I literally dread seeing the quest pop up for ones. It's like, oh Lord, anything but this. Anything but this.
Yeah. I do actually have. Let me see. Let me get to my notepad. I did actually have a list of things because like whenever I put out the video for MVS and talked a lot about the speed, it was clear that people, because okay, before I put out that video, I'm sure you noticed there was a lot of Twitter controversy about people saying game's too slow, game bad, game too slow, right? But as soon as I started talking about the game's speed, and my initial goal with my video in the first place was not to have people agree with me. It was to get the conversation started and help get people to articulate what they mean when they say it's too slow or game bad.
Exactly.
Right?
No, I get you. That's exactly the same thing. Okay. Sorry, slightly on off topic, but like when I put out my first like Beyond Saving video, that was the whole point. It was like I love the game, I like it, I respect its potential, but because WB meddled with it, there's a very strong potential we're not going to get more because of the trajectory. And like we as fans, we have to be pretty vocal and pretty aggressive, so to speak, about like we got to get these things fixed. Like, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily rushing the devs, not forcing them to slave overnight or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but just like these are the problems, like, and being more constructive and pointing out these are the issues with the game. Because
Mm-hmm.
say spectator mode gets fixed, which is why I say in the video, the next issue is going to come up, which is like, okay, well, now people are going to talk about the slow speed, like you said, or they're going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about certain moves not working or hitbox. We'll talk about the hitboxes
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. And I'm like, there's so many layers to this game because partially because it was rushed, but also a lot of it's left over from beta, and I truly wish I was the fly on the wall to know what happened, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it carried from beta. And during beta, in my opinion, people were just they just stopped playing. They didn't voice their critiques. They didn't speak up and say these are the problems, these are the hitboxes, these are the things we're finding. They just like a beta should. They just kind of went, okay, it's dying, and then they did hashtag save multiverses or rise for multiverses over and over.
Yeah.
And it's like that didn't.
Yeah.
Now we're here, now we're here.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how you want to, I guess, structure the video, but I actually do have a list of
Okay.
factors that I was able to kind of get just based off of the complaints that I see. What issues that I think are plaguing the game that can be
Sure.
fixed? Like a starting point for player first to look at and fix. I believe that player first over time will
Mhm.
have the ability to fix all of these things. It's just a matter of, will
How
people still be
long?
playing? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
right. Will people still be playing by that long? And I think that right now, hold on just a sec.
Yeah, you're
Cat
good.
in the way.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. But yeah, over time, I think that all these issues will be fixed and addressed, but it's obviously the player base numbers are tanking quite quickly. Last week I looked and it was like 10K, and I looked yesterday and it was like 4K. And I'm like,
Yeah,
ugh.
Agent Smith came out and it had its like lowest, and that was
Mhm.
shocking. I won't.
Yeah.
I won't speak on. I'm not gonna. I was about to call someone out. I'm gonna leave it there.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna leave it there. I
Yeah.
don't want to get canceled again. But
Yeah.
yeah. I think as a player that plays a lot of these things, I need people. It's hard to convey to them, right?
Mhm.
To the fandom that like I'm not here to hate. I don't want it to not succeed. I can't emphasize that enough. But it is
Mhm.
dire. I saw some people like no
Yeah.
joke saying, "Well, it's doing better than Suicide Squad and Mortal Kombat 1." And I'm like, "Holy, the bars in hell." That's
Yeah.
the best we
Yeah.
got.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you look at the Street Fighter 6 PC numbers alone, which is a paid game that's $60 with DLC that's also 40, they have more players. Tekken 8 has more players, and like
Yeah.
for not even equating how many people are playing on console, because I still think the number's healthy. Don't get it twisted. They got to
Mhm.
easily be pulling in 50, 60K easy.
Mhm.
If you factor in Xbox, Series 1, PS5, PS4,
Mhm.
easy about 50 to 40K. But the thing is, we see it as success, and PFG, they see it as success too, probably. The boys at the
Mhm.
top, who is what I've been yelling at since Jump, WB, they're looking at that and going, "Oh,
Yeah.
the free to play game's dying. Okay,
Yeah,
we're done.
probably.
Pull the plug." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, that's not the answer."
Yeah.
We already relaunched it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Sorry.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it is dire that these issues get fixed, and the game gets the popularity that it eventually will deserve.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Um,
I agree. I want the game. I want it to do well. 2XKO Multiversus Evo finals will be
Mhm.
godlike. We need that.
Dude,
The
yeah.
culture needs that.
Mhm.
Like two pair play games celebrating fighting games as a cooperative experience, which is what it's always been. If you go back to arcade culture,
Mhm.
that's what the streets need. You know what I mean? But like, it's hard because these industries, and how they move are getting in the way of that. I get emotional.
Yeah.
I'm like, darn, man.
Yeah, I think that the critiques of the game are obviously they're always valuable, and I think Player First has done a pretty good job of
Mm.
addressing them at a pretty good speed. I mean, 2 weeks after the game came out, everyone was complaining that the meta was like jab, dodge, jab, right? I don't know if
Exactly.
you've seen it.
No,
but there's
I've seen it. It's bad.
there's a-
I was
there's a-
the jab dodger. I was
Yeah.
Joker Harley.
Yeah, there was a really funny clip of a pro player named FPZ versus someone else who was like a Joker main.
Okay.
And he would the clip was just him trying to whip punish with jab, the other Joker dodging and jabbing, and then he dodges that jab, and then it was just it's a silly clip.
That sounds
It's
like
a
MVS to me. Yeah, that sounds like peak
Yeah.
MVS. Oh lord.
Yeah, but they did end up addressing that by like nerfing jabs universally and adding like a dodge timer lockout, and
I saw
you know
that.
they are listening to the community, right? And I think that it's important that whenever we make our critiques about the games, we specify as much as possible what we want to change. And like I said, we'll probably get into it later, but like I said, I do have a list of things.
Yeah, let's save. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But like, we'll save those towards the end, for sure, because I have my own list. I'm actually my video I'm putting out next, my big 1 hour one, which I'm sorry, I don't hate MBS. This one is actually just full of critiques and fixes to said critiques. That's my goal with it. It's.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
Go on.
No, you're good. You're good. Hopefully, it's a bit more constructive in the way people were asking for. Where it's like I offer fixes to the Rift mode that I don't think I went through the Reddits and stuff. No one's really offered some of these, so I'm like, I offer fixes to the Rift mode. I'm like, I feel like Rift mode should play like this. If they do another character event like Agent Smith, it should function like this. And I bring up a lot of the Sephiroth challenge because I thought that was peak. It was peak.
Yes,
like they should, if they did that, and I said if they want to keep the login playability, they can just make us fight gradually harder Agent Smiths, and then make the difficulties slightly harder each day. And then, the final one's like super insanity crushing, whatever it is. You take them out, you get the character. I'm like, dope, right? Dope.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been a very healthy way to keep retention time, keep player time. Players that are getting bored of Rifts, they know they don't have to interact with them. They could just go straight to this. Players that are going to do it for Quest, they're going to go interact with the Rifts in doses that make sense instead of like forcing you to complete a whole Rift a day, which are can take a bit of time, no matter how many gems and stuff you get. So because the Rifts are pretty long, and hopefully I also add that it gives player first games time to really think about how they want the Rifts to progress moving forward instead of the current state they're in now. Because I feel like a lot of people just aren't a big fan of the PvE content in the game, and that was like the big selling point, and that really burned a lot of casual consumers, unfortunately. And I think they're fun. They got really great mini games in there, but unfortunately, like they tend to repeat, and then that leads into other issues. So you kind of get the gist, right?
I do think the way that we do need to go forward is not just saying game bad, lol.
Exactly, yeah.
Specifically calling out the issues you have and adding suggestions on how it could be fixed, I think is the way to go.
Right, and that's part of the critique culture too that I want to, and it's like that across Twitter and Reddit, whatever it may be. Like it goes always for the defenders, the haters, whatever. We have to. I've been saying it from jump. I did it in multiple videos. I've offered changes and fixes in my previous two, even in the community sense too. But the thing is, we have to start addressing how you as a player, and that's okay, would you like to see these things change? Because player first games listens, obviously. I'm never going to take that away from them. I've literally argued that they listen too much. I will never forget Batman 2022. That was insane. Never in my fighting game life have I seen a character get patched via Twitter. That was godlike.
Yeah.
That was godlike. Yeah. Seeing that in real time, like, holy, you guys just buffed this character for a whole month or like a whole couple of weeks. That was godlike. And then nerfed him the same way. So anyways, it's a whole thing. But like, that's the type of stuff PFG is great at, right? And so or in terms of listening to fans and harnessing that constructive feedback and doing proper things with it, right? Now, the way I think they should start moving in the future is maybe a little less of that, respectfully. I think the fans are great, but they, at the end of the day, we're not the ones making the game. We're not the ones that we have our ideals of what we would like fixed and what we would like changed, but it's not entirely what I believe the direction the game could go or should go. So that's why I bring up the Killer Instinct dev comparison, which is a game I was heavily involved in. And if you've ever watched the Hold Back to Block documentary on Killer Instincts, they were one of the first, actually probably the first fighting game, to be brutally honest, that had fan feedback kind of implement and decide how they change characters, right? There's a character in the game named Jago, to re-summarize, and Jago was really godlike. Everyone thought he was so broken. He was so good. He had all these tools. And the way they went about change, or the way the fans said they should change him is, well, you got to nerf his healing factor. If when he pops Instinct, which is kind of like a V trigger if you've played Street Fighter V, he gets his health back on every hit, like mad health. This is broken. Nerf the healing. So the devs are like, okay, let's look into it. So they did an internal test where they nerfed the healing. Like that wasn't it. He's still godlike. He has no losing matchups. Wait a second. It's his win kick.
Yeah.
That's all we need to change. They just changed win kick. The fans were so mad. These homies went on tirades. They were yelling at the devs. How dare you? We need a nerf win kick. Or that was not the nerf we needed. All that good stuff. Guess what happened? Jago fell off the tier list. He has losing matchups now.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good way of going about it.
Yeah, I was like, I think that has been the most insightful piece of developer history I've ever seen, and it really recontextualized how I think about fighting game patches and how I want to go about balancing characters as a consumer, right? It's like, to me, some of the answers aren't, well, I bring it up and be like, some of the answers maybe weren't to nerf the jab strings and things of that nature. I think there's fundamental gameplay systems that need to change, unfortunately, but that's a harder change, right? That's harder, and it's kind of feeding into this dodge heavy meta, as I call it, where it feels like you're constantly on the chase, even when you're on the offensive, right?
Yeah.
Especially in ones, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I gotta, like I said, I got a lot.
Yeah, we got a lot.
Of stuff addressing that.
Let me reel it back here. I have a PowerPoint. I have a quick slide. Let me get through that. We'll kind of mix things. It's also breaking down a little bit of the video too, because I have to clear some of the misconceptions. I'm sorry. As a fighting game fan, I have to come through. Also, someone shoot that bot for me. Respectfully, I want him clean shot. The solution. Just reading off some of the chat. Hey Jazz, welcome. I like your Avi. 5027. I don't know if the solution is to buff everyone. That's actually not great. We'll talk about that in another way. Nerfs are okay. We gotta leave the buff culture. But I think Maximilian Dude started this. Love you, Max. Whoever started it, whatever FGC figurehead, Illuminati member, y'all messed up.
Yeah, Core A definitely
was it Core A?
Pushing. Yeah, Core A pushed the idea of buffs are better than nerfs for sure.
I was like, okay, Gerald, yeah. We need that mentality crushed, because that's not actually the answer. If we do that, we get Multiversus beta. That's what we get. Everyone was OD. Everyone had some dumb stuff, and then you had if you had a molecule of things off, or you weren't I don't know who the top tiers were at the end of the game. I think it was Marvin was pretty good. I know my character did my character ever fumble? Was Harley ever bad?
No, Harley was always top 4.
I was about to say, I'll just say my character. Harley been godlike. She needs something. I don't know what you could do to nerf her, honestly. But, she needs something nerfed. Something changed. I think she's OD. Okay, so... Yeah, let me swap... Oh, also, Steven Universe is a great example. I don't know what... They gutted that character. Respectfully. That character's done. That character got destroyed. Swapping you over here. So, gripes, critiques... Pulling it up. I don't know if you're on the stream. It might take a little bit to update. Ignore this giant wall of text. This is just the precursor, essentially, to what we're going to be discussing. So, the Marvel vs. Capcom section. I'm very sorry. I have to bring it up because it is that is my game. And there was a couple of misconceptions there in terms of even how it was developed. I know you said the script was pretty quick. It just because I'm a nerd. And there are FGC fellows are all nerds. MVC is a very storied game. we have utmost high respect for this title. It wasn't really made with traditional Street Fighter people, believe it or not. There were, of course, some ex Street Fighter 2 devs, mainly the guy that planned the original Street Fighter 2. I forgot his name, but the main planner of SF2 did plan X-Men Children of the Atom. Everyone else that worked on that game, they were former beat 'em up devs from Final Fight, The Punisher, things of that nature. They went on to make Children of the Atom, which spawned the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise. A lot of the combos, things with the assists, like having 3 characters, that was all just a byproduct of the tag formula evolving, not necessarily, the game's too fast. Because these games were always very, very quick. X-Men Children of the Atom has TOD infinites, all that good stuff. The reason why they did that is because it's Marvel characters. X-Men they're kind of nasty. They had to do a new system. Where did they get that system? Darkstalkers. A lot of the ex-Darkstalkers people were over there. So they all kind of came over and made this gumbo. And then in the Street Fighter sense, Alpha 2 and Alpha 1 exist. Those games were always very fast. Those games are very quick. Alpha 2 introduced custom combo, which is Oh
Hmm.
gosh,
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
want to get into.
familiar with
Yeah,
custom combo. Yeah.
we don't want to get into all that. But when I'm just saying, I know it's generalizations, but just to clear it up for people that may not know, and I'm also a nerd, and I really like the history. If you want to read more, check it out. There's a very great oral history by Polygon that was put on in 2021 on X-Men: Children of the Atom and how that game came around, along with Street Fighter 2 all the way through Alpha,
Hmm.
and Third Strike. And it's one of the most insightful game dev looks we've had on a fighting game, and it really means a lot to me because you know, as an outsider, a gaijin,
Yeah.
some might say, we don't get stuff like that. So it's really dope to see them kind of pull
Yeah.
up and talk about it.
I think a big reason for the misconception is the fact that you said like the lead guy came from Street Fighter 2, right?
Yeah, that is a bit of it, but
Hmm.
he never directed. He was just the planner. He was just like laying the
Ah.
foundation, helping them kind of get, because he's the fighting game guy of Capcom, and just like, okay, here's how things move. But the guys that
Hmm.
developed it were ex Darkstalkers, ex
Hmm.
Punisher devs, which they've dabbled with Street Fighter 2, but none of them actively helped, aside from like a couple special things, translations, some gameplay stuff here and there. But for the most part, they were doing other titles.
Hmm.
Because at that time, Capcom was a revolving door, you know what I mean? In the sense that
Hmm.
everyone moved on every project. So when they got their chance to make their own straight up project, which was X-Men Coda and The Punisher, it really meant a lot to these guys. Final fun fact: the director literally just entered Capcom. Basically, Punisher was his
Hmm.
one of his first titles
Okay.
of X-Men and future titles. So no, again, no hate, nothing wrong with that. I get
Hmm.
it was a good, you get it for the bits and for the video and stuff. But some people in the FGC, they take that stuff serious, man. I'm one of those people, by the way.
Yeah.
I take that serious. That's why that franchise spawned got so many people out of situations and stuff. It means a lot to us.
Yeah.
So yeah, same with the Melee one, because I don't think Melee was ever intended to be like fast paced, which I think Smash
Okay. Now
fans
that I
are
will
tired
correct.
of. Okay,
No, no,
okay,
no, no, no. That one I will correct because I know that one.
okay.
I can submit that like okay maybe the source that I was like looking at for reference whenever I was doing research on the video left out a lot of the details because like I said, I mean it's not like I'm just pulling this out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, I don't think you are. I
Uh,
don't think you are.
yeah, like um, but yeah, it's not like I was just pulling it out of nowhere. I did get it from a source, but I'm guessing that there was a miscommunication between me and the source where I was under the belief that because the planner came from Street Fighter 2, a lot of the
Like the
design
developing
is
team.
yeah, the development side of it. And I was also seen in my source, and I'll have to go back and find it again.
Yeah,
But in
you're
the
good.
source, yeah, and yeah, I'll probably find it later and send it to you.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
fine. It's all good.
yeah, the source essentially told me the exact same story I told on stream, right? And I'm
Oh,
glad
okay,
we could
okay.
yeah, I'm glad we could clear up the miscommunication because like,
Yeah.
if you seem like you have done your research on it and all that good stuff. But the melee portion, I will actually defend because
Okay. Wait.
a lot of people will say that melee was not designed to be a fast action-packed game. It was designed to be a party game first and foremost for casuals. And while you may be able to argue that was the case for the initial development of Smash 64,
Mm.
you can see there's plenty of articles and plenty of interviews where Sakurai goes out of his way and states that he designed the game to have a lot more mechanical depth. He's went on record saying that he's
Mm-hmm.
designed the game for people who are more well versed in games, in his own quotes. And
Right. Okay.
while he may look back and regret it nowadays and be like, I feel like I shouldn't have.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, he may have been able to go back and say, oh, I regret making it hard for people to get into, and he's his design decisions going forward with Brawl, Smash 4, Ultimate
Right.
has been to allow the player to lower the skill gap or the skill floor
I get you.
in the scene. 100% Sakurai has stated multiple times that the game was designed to have more mechanical depth, to be
Okay.
more for characters who have for players who are well versed in games. And a lot of the mechanics that you guys think are glitches were not glitches. Wave dashing was seen in development. The game has been patched multiple times, and none of those times they removed wave dashing.
Right. Or L canceling,
And
right?
or L canceling, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Not to mention, Sakurai had an entire website dedicated to sharing tech that wasn't clear in the game.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
there was an entire website called Smash Dojo. It was
Oh, I remember
designed,
that. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, where he would go on and put in tech like crouch canceling, L canceling,
Yep.
like uh the ledge slip aerials, the short hop fast fall special moves, like
Okay.
canceling the landing lag with those. All these things were intentionally designed and added into the game by Sakurai to make the game faster paced,
To
to
make the
make the
game
game more
faster. Okay.
yeah, to and like I said, there's faster games nowadays, and you can argue that he didn't intend for, or he didn't know the ramifications of what it meant to make a faster paced game.
Yeah, like he
At
didn't know
the
what was
end of
gonna spawn.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it was designed to be faster paced.
Okay, I see. So there was a lot of revisionists from Sakurai himself, so to speak. But I get
Mhm.
you. We had to come. Oh no, I agree then. So it's kind of it's
Mhm.
funny that you say that because it's literally the exact same thing with MVC in that case, where it's like
Hmm.
a lot of things he talks about, like oh the more characters were added to because the game was so fast. I'm like, no, that's just a byproduct of MVC. You know what I mean? They did it
Mhm.
because the assists were added, and assists were played with, but they didn't have the hardware and the potential to push it with MVC one. They had like select an assist, which would be like Psylocke or Thor or some random character like that you could press medium punch and medium kick together. They would come out and do their thing in MVC one. By MVC two, they say, okay, here's what we're gonna do. You could just select your own assist because of the evolution of the gameplay. It was like now you can properly build your own team comp by MVC two standards, and then by MVC three, like it's off the rails. That game's just busted, and also it's technically
Mhm.
not developed by Capcom, but that's a whole. We'll talk about that, and that's a
Mhm.
whole other thing. Yeah, that is kind of also part of the issues, like with MVC, like MVC two, kind of known infamous for its timeouts. Some would even argue
Mhm.
it's a faster paced game for sure, but it you do get timed out. They do be playing
Yeah.
time. They do be your defensive has to be very very heavy or you get blown up. And that's where those things come into play.
Hey,
Which
hey man,
we'll talk about.
I've seen how little damage those infinites do.
Yeah, I was
I've
about to
seen them
say,
run
yeah,
the
yeah. You've
time.
seen the do the ladders and
Yeah.
stuff. I get you. So yeah,
Hey
like
yo,
there's
you
a
want to learn
lot
how to
of
do a fucking infinite?
like there's a lot of things that could go into it, right? In terms of how these games are developed. But like once you MVC three, like to me that was the aggressive esque mechanics getting pushed to the breaking point because the devs behind it, those guys just full sent it and it's aiding. And if you know the history of aiding, those guys are crack monsters basically. They don't even they only know how to design just insane aggressive fun. Like that's it. That's all that's in their DNA. I don't even sometimes
Alright.
speed is even a factor. I mean, they made Clash of Ninja 2, which is a Naruto game, which is like known for its
Mhm.
infinites and crazy juggles. They did
Yeah.
they did the Zatchbell games. I'm doing his video on tag games currently, and aiding comes up a lot. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to reveal the hand too much. I gotta farm the content, but just know you will see aiding on that list a lot. Those guys are known for making just insane stuff. And Tatsunoko is also a great example of that, where it was slower paced, and a lot of that DNA just got ported over to Marvel 3, which was crazy. But some ex Capcom people worked there. From what I understand, I might be wrong, but from what I understand, some ex Capcom people went over and helped out and led to this beautiful, beautiful mess that is Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I love that game, but gosh darn, it is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, yeah. It's difficult.
Right. All right, so looking over at our hold up. There we go. Looking over at our thing here, you guys could probably see over. I'll let it pop up. Also, you're covering the GIF. Oops. But you guys could probably see. What the question coming up is what defines speed to you? I guess that's a great question. What defines speed to you in a traditional fighting game or a 2D fighting game?
Yeah, this lines up perfectly well. It's actually one of my first like bullet points that I wanted to talk about. But yeah, I think that it's important to recognize that there's not just one answer as to what makes a fighting game fast or slow. The most obvious thing that you or anyone will think whenever it comes to speed is how quickly you move from one situation to the next and the amount of decisions that you have to make going from like one station to another. This can also be regarding the number of interactions you need in order to win the game. So like for example, people will call Guilty Gear a fast game. Now Other people will say it's not, but the reason why people say it is just because how quickly you can get like blown up. If you have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of risk built, it's like not uncommon for real touch of deaths to exist in that game. Like no infinite required. Like
Right.
especially with characters like Slayer that just recently got added.
Yeah.
People are posting clips of him like one touching people all the time, and
Right. Right.
so you could argue whether or not like the fact that he only needs to guess once or twice can make it slow or fast.
Okay.
Move speed is also something that is very important to consider when you talk about speed, because that introduces the concept of threat range and bubble theory. And
Mm.
as most FGC players will come to realize, and will quickly realize, there's a word for that. We call that mental stack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The idea is that uh, reactions in fighting games are pretty much designed around the same human reaction speed, no matter what. It's just about what all do you have to look out for at all these different ranges, right? And the movement speed and the options available at any given point in time kind of add on to this mental stack. For example, the reason why you might say that Street Fighter is slower than something like Marvel
Okay.
is that, if you are in like fireball, maybe crouching, low, medium kick range, there's like a very like low amount of things you have to look out for unless you're up against specific characters, but we'll get into that eventually.
Sure. Sure.
Um, but there's like a very small amount of things that you have to look out for. It's usually like jump and dash. Sometimes it's fireball, and
Mm-hmm.
in six is drive rush as well. Of
I was about to
course,
say, yeah, Drive
yeah,
Rush.
yes, drive rush, drive impact. There's a lot of like things in six, but in core like Street Fighter, like 5, 4, and Third Strike to an extent. Third Strike, their advantage state is crazy, but
I was about to
I'm
say,
sure.
yeah, Third. I
Yeah,
was gonna bring up
yeah,
Third Strike in
yeah.
this very thing, but we'll kind of
hmm
cover that as we get to it.
Yeah, but I think the primary like thing that encompasses it all is
Right.
the mental stack, right? How many situations do you have to know in any given situation, and
Okay.
how many times do you have to guess right or wrong in order to win a game, I guess.
Okay. That's an interesting look at it for sure. In terms of determining game speed, you said.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay. Let me before I guess do the rebuttal, so to speak. I have to
mhm,
bring up someone Bone Shackles in chat said they disagree. I'm curious
mhm.
as to why, from a perspective that isn't involved with the happenings here. I'm personally on the side of I definitely get where you're coming from. But I think it's still a little like it's got some nuances in there too. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because we're on this. I think we're on the same wavelength. Because to me, I say what defines the speed of a fighting game is the system mechanics, the amount of access you have. Right. I consider
Yeah.
games like Third Strike, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 6, especially. Those games are fast paced to me. Like to me, the stack of being like, not knowing what you could do on parry, what wake up options could you even do? Red parry is a thing in that game you have to watch out for. Like there's so many factors in a game
Mhm.
like Third Strike where it's like that's a very fast paced game where like neutral exists. It's obviously there. But
Yeah.
it's so much harder to find like a clear cut path, so to speak. Like you it is so free form. I often call it kind of like the melee of Street Fighter in the sense of how free form it is,
Mhm.
or the Street Fighter's equivalent to melee because it's so free
Yeah.
form. There's so many options you have. There's so many things you can do. And I think that's what players like. Also known in the FGC as a loose game. You guys probably call it a loose title, right?
Mhm.
And a loose title is one where you are free to do whatever. You're free to get a TOD if you want. You're free to do one hit into insta kill, GG1.
Yeah.
You're free to do
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff, right? And to me, like those games go by quick, but they're not necessarily what I would call a fast paced game, right? They're not necessarily what I
Mhm.
would call like, oh, these games are super fast in terms of movement, in terms of the mechanics they're even offering. They're just fast paced in the sense of, oh, I have more things I can do, right? And it kind of
Mhm.
falls into that mental stack category. But I don't know if that's completely it because I don't know how to define mental stack because I might be a new age player because that when did that phrase come around? When did mental stack become a
Mental
thing?
stack?
Yeah, like I don't feel like
Uh
I've heard it that often. Or I only started hearing like when Street Fighter 6 came out. To be honest, I don't know who started it.
I heard it. I've heard of it back when, I mean, back when I first started getting into like
Okay, okay.
FGC, like traditional FGC stuff back with Street Fighter Five.
Oh, that explains it. Yeah, 5 players are
Yeah.
they got it. They're deep in
Mhm.
philosophy during that era.
Yeah, because like the big thing whenever it comes to Street Fighter 5, at least whenever I was like really playing the game, was like
Mm-hmm.
trying to adjust the mental stack of not only like making sure that you're staying at a correct range, like I mentioned in my video,
Oh
but
yeah, the
also
footsies and all that.
yeah, the footsies, but also making sure that you're able to watch for jump and dash. And the chances are is you're not ready for all of those. Just
Okay, okay.
just because of the mental stack. Street Fighter 6 has done an insane job in speeding up the game because they added
Right.
so much more to the mental stack. You have drive rush, you have drive impact. Like there's so many different things, and like you can't really like afford to just like press buttons nearly as much as well.
Yeah, no, you have to be super on point.
Yeah.
Let's check Bone Shackles real quick here.
Hmm.
Uh, I'll read it out. Speed is
Hmm.
relative because a video game is not a physical object. You have horizontal density and vertical density. A game that's horizontally fast is a game where the characters move across distance very quickly, and so the game is fast when it comes to spacing. Okay. A game that is vertically fast is a game where the system mechanics and mental stack very quickly stack on top of each other, and the APM becomes very fast. The game cannot be both or a mix of one or some another. Or a game can be both or a mix of one or another. Not. They can be both. That's an interesting way of looking at it. I think that's kind of cutting to the heart of what we're talking about a bit here, though, in terms of what games offer. Because I had this comment come up recently too when I was on a fellow friend of the channel, Avatar Yaya. They were talking about a new anime arena fighter that's coming out called Bleach. Or whatever. I don't know the full title for Bleach. I'm not a weed dude, but I'm out of that phase. But they sorry, I'm gonna change game coming out, and I mentioned like I think a lot of what makes games fast to the player's mind is the mechanics you're offering and what you're doing in the title, right? Like I may see a game like Street Fighter 4 to be relatively slow paced, right? But I can imagine from a casual perspective or like someone jumping in and learning the game, if you get your fireball absorbed and I run up on you in FADC, you are probably like, what the heck is this? I thought this was this slow paced, footsies game,
Yeah.
And I'm like that. I think it just all kind of boils down to player feeling. I would say a fighting game has a
Hmm.
character with really fast frame data, but then moves across the game slowly. Is that game fast? Oh, Multiversus.
Hmm.
You could argue
Well,
it's fast.
give me just a second to think on this.
Yeah, you're good. You could argue it's fast when the characters are next to each other, then spacing slow pace, but the CQC is fast. Dang, wait, that's a good. Wait a second. So are you saying
Hmm.
fighting game speeds are variable? Because I agree with that. That's what I'm saying. Like I think. Oh
I
wait, what? My brain's
I think
expanding.
I think that those two play together a lot more than you think it does.
Okay.
If a character has very fast moves but don't move around the screen nearly as much, then I feel like the issue is that the threat range is very defined. It's highly defined and there's not as much mental stack. You're playing more around the spacing at which they're doing the moves. Whereas if you move around the screen really fast but your moves come out very slow, there's a bigger threat range,
Okay.
uh but at the same time there's more options to deal with it as well. I think this will play really into what I want to discuss here in a little bit whenever I start
Okay.
talking about game speed and how important it is whenever it comes to preemptive play whenever you're playing a faster game, I guess.
Right, right. No,
um
I agree
mhm,
that speed's a variable and not fixed. Like I have a
mhm,
whole segment in my new video because I kind of bring up the RPS video, talking about how like Melee's a game, for example, that's considered to be blazing fast, but we've seen that optimally it's a slow game. Like if everyone opted to pick Jigs or a character of that nature, or Peach, which the best Peach retired, unfortunately. So like we'll never know the extent of what that campy like playstyle was gonna go. Even in Ice Climbers to an extent until they got wobbling
mhm.
banned and they all had to go for
Yeah,
burgers.
yeah. Hey, they're getting good at handoffs again, so
Oh,
they're
okay,
coming
okay.
back.
Wait a
Yeah, they're
second.
making it
Wait a
right.
second.
Yeah, a lot of.
But in the sense of like these people or like these players of of the game. Like speed's definitely variable, but there is also, like cars and other things. There's a set speed. Everything can go. Some things are 280 mpmh, sorry, and some things are 360. Some things are just blazing fast. Some things are F1 cars. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
consider MVC3, tag fighters in general. Well, not honestly all tag fighters, but games like MVC, titles of that nature. That's an F1 car. Fast, precise, bullet speed. You got to be on top of that. Not any driver could get
Mhm.
behind that wheel. Street Fighter, that might be stock racing. If we're going by speed
Mhm.
variables, so that's more NASCAR. It's the same
I
oval. You're familiar with the laps and the streaks, but there's a couple twists and turns in how the players or the racers in this case operate. F1, twisting paths, etc., etc.
mhm.
Thousands of
Yeah.
ways to cut through.
I would also like to mention that like it's not just variable from game to game, it's variable within the same game with different
Right,
characters. For
right.
example, if we go back and we look at like 2 Turbo, if you look at like Ryu versus Guile, like you might look at that game and be like, "Oh, this is like a really slow footsies oriented game,"
Yup.
right? And then you play against Vega and you're like, "What? What happened?"
No, it's funny you mentioned Super Turbo. I have a whole segment talking about like what truly defines speed in a fighting game and like how players interpret speed, which we'll
Uh,
cover in a second because I'm,
mhm.
I'm building up to a big rebuttal. But I talk
Okay.
about, well, what about Cammy versus Sagat? Like, what about a matchup like that? You have an inherently fast character that just loses off of the first two interactions in Super Turbo. Like,
Mhm.
there's
Yes.
literally nothing that character can do. It's one of the few 7-3 matchups in fighting game history.
Mhm.
And they are the fast character, and they're losing to someone who's just spamming Tiger. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen it. I've seen
yeah,
it.
it's like
It's
it's like that. That's an interesting question because this is literally Super Turbo. This is considered the faster game, yet
mhm.
you watch it get played at a high level, and you're going to see a lot of matches that do kind of slow down, and even the matches that are fast, they have their own ways of going about it, which is very interesting. It's very interesting, and that's the footsies heavy one, by the way. Those are the
Mhm.
ones that are like, oh, the footsies in these games are godlike. Without these footsies,
Mhm.
we wouldn't be
Yeah.
where we're at. And I'm like, okay. uh,
Mhm.
that being said, the only true footsie games, by the way, are Samurai Showdown 2019, and the Last Blade series. It's
Yeah.
3 games. If you want like true fundy footsies, and you're gonna quickly learn you're gonna quickly learn why not a
Yeah.
lot of people play them.
I wanted to use Sam Showdown as my example for the slow game and the fast versus slow,
Okay, sure,
but
sure.
and the main reason I didn't want to go with it is because not a lot of people play it, and I'm like, I
You
feel like
know
that's a
what?
bad example, and not a lot
I
of people
think
know
it's
about
worth.
it.
I will say for next time, if unsolicited advice, type beat, I think it's
Mhm.
worth doing. That's part of the charm of a lot of those channels like Corey and stuff. They introduce people to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think I wanted to, but a bigger part of it, I guess to me was like I don't
Right.
play the game like that. I play
I
Street
see.
Fighter
Yeah.
6 and I play Street Fighter 5, and because I wanted to get the video out on like a monthly basis, I was like I don't have the
Right.
time to like track down
Delve
the Sam
into.
Showdown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Discord. Yeah, you got no one at the locals and all that stuff. I get you. No, it's
Yeah.
valid. It's valid. I think my rule of thumb is if you always put in the research, you know what I mean, it's worth doing. If you put in the time, you might, because it's that's
Mhm.
a big thing with FGC. A lot of people you get, I gotta grind, I gotta like figure out the game and like as a personal level. I'm like, but there's just like sports. Traditional football and stuff. There's respect in understanding the game. There's respect in looking deeply into what players are saying and how they talk and how they move and kind of saying, well, this is anecdotal, but I feel like it applies to the multiverses argument.
Mhm.
Um, just personally, what I would do, because like I'm literally covering like 50 tag games or so for like an upcoming video. I'm like, I obviously don't have time to get mad, and I'm like the mechanics of them. I don't have time to get mad good at them, but I thankfully have wikis and articles and things from back in the day that do a lot of great
Mhm.
info filling in. So
Yeah.
I sympathize in that regard.
Yeah, I've been genuinely. I think I'm gonna end up stepping away, especially after this last video.
Oh
The
shoot.
way that it went, like the way that it ended up going, and how poorly I felt like I executed the concept. I do think I'm
Hmm.
gonna step away from the monthly basis just so I can really make sure that
That is
you
quality
know,
kind of thing.
yes, there's the
I feel
quality,
that.
and yeah, I have time to like talk to people who are from the scenes of the games that I like are a little less familiar in, because like I'm
Yeah.
sure you could tell. I've played
Yeah,
Marvel, but I've played Marvel on a very beginner level. I'm the
I
type of
see. Yeah.
guy. I'm the type of guy who I fight Chris Redfield. He goes, "Open fire, eat lead, open fire." I'm like, bro,
I
what?
was about to say when you showed the Spider-Man clip, I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
I knew. You probably got hit by an
yeah.
Infinite. You're like, I hate this game. I can't stand
I
this game.
I like my entire first week of playing Marvel with my friends. One of my friends just picked Taskmaster. He's like, Spidey swing, and
Yup,
just,
yup.
four overheads. I'm like, what?
No, I get you.
Uh, but
Let's see if
yeah.
let me catch up real quick on chat here. I'll move on to the
hmm
next point. I think we did a pretty good job of defining speed. I'm gonna
hmm
meet you halfway, or meet you here. I think I kind of agree. I don't know if I would quite say it's the mental stack. I'd say it's a combination of factors. As
hmm
a roundabout way of putting it for me, it's a combination of factors. What is your game inherently built off of? What are the mechanics your games offers? And then we can talk about speed from there. For
hmm
example, in a game like Third Strike, there's no ifs ands or buts. That's a fast-paced game. It's neutral
hmm
heavy still. It's whiff punish heavy still, obviously, but it is a fast-paced
hmm
game. When you can walk up and say, 10 frames, nope, you don't get to play, and do Chun-Li Super 2, that's fast.
hmm
That's very
hmm
quick.
Yeah.
In the same breath, I also consider a game like Samurai Showdown to be faster paced. Why? Because if I whiff a
Mm.
button, I can literally explode. That is inherently fast. You get 2 interactions out of the game.
Interesting.
To a lot of players that are casual and you are having fun, or not even casual, even at a high level, it seems slower on the surface in the sense of, oh, I'm respecting your buttons, I'm respecting you as a player, I'm not going to push advantage, but when you push
hmm
advantage, you explode, and it's very quick and it's very painful, and you instantly can clock, oh, I should not have pressed that button, I shouldn't have throw them to that corner, I didn't realize they had advantage there. You move on to the next
hmm
match, we shake hands, and we go on from there. Now, what
Okay.
happens in between those 15 to 20 seconds? That you may argue could be a slower paced title because you think it's like when you say you have more time to think. But I also would argue when your mental stack is significantly lower, when you only have to worry about someone pressing heavy slash, in Samsho's case, or and then that getting called out with a devastation move where swoosh, in an instant your health bar is at half, right?
Okay.
That's
So
also a
you
pretty quick stack.
so you define fast-paced games in more so the amount of interactions that is required to win a game rather
Right.
than the.
Right. I
All
think
right.
I think depending on the amount of interactions you have, that equates to kind of how fast paced a game to be. I consider Strive to be a fast paced game. They're just different strides of speed, right? Which is why I feel like
hmm
defining speed in a fighting game is very, very difficult because
hmm
fighting games are, again, like racing, variable. And I think that's
hmm
the hardest part. So that's kind of the argument I was leaning into. Maybe speed isn't the right descriptor when it comes to talking about how we approach fighting game design or things of that nature. And that goes for Multiversus too. Maybe speed isn't the answer we're looking for. Just because there's a
hmm
lot of actions per minute in, say, Melee, it still takes, a good amount of time for those stocks to
hmm
fly. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we've all seen matches go on for a while. We've seen Jigglypuff camp you out. We've seen Peach do things,
hmm
right? In my
hmm
in my Marvel case, my bat signal went up because I'm like, wait a second, Marvel 3, that game is notoriously known for whittling that character your
hmm
team down quickly, but then Virgil comes out and everyone's playing Matt safe. Everyone's like, wait a second, I don't want
hmm
to interact. We got Virgil with
Yeah.
X Factor. Hold up. And then what
Yeah.
happens?
I,
Level 3 comeback. And
I
that timer at 30, 20, 30 to 40 seconds, sometimes that timer gone, you know what I mean? Especially early
mhm,
Marvel 3, Phoenix would just jump in the sky and just Firebird, 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 Firebird. I'm not
mhm,
interacting, right? Is
yeah.
that to a lot of players, is that fast paced? That's pretty slow. That's a game that's
Yeah.
slowing down drastically. That started breakneck, right? So that kind of
hmm
leans into the argument of what I'm kind of getting at here, which I'm
hmm
kind of I
I
think it's on the next slide. I don't know, but
yeah.
we'll
I
see.
will say that I think that the amount of interactions needed to win the game is only a piece of the puzzle. I think that there's a lot of
Okay.
more factors that add up into the game speed, right?
Right. Sure.
Like you said, like you said, the game can get slowed down significantly whenever Virgil's on the screen and people are playing mad defensive, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I think that mental stack is so important whenever you're considering the game speed as well. I think that they're both
Okay.
pieces of the puzzle, and I think Bone
I'll shake
Shackles
on
has a
that.
good point. Yeah. All right, but yeah, I think I do think it's just a big there's a lot of factors that goes into defining the game speed, and that's why it's hard to define what exactly makes a game fast or what makes a game slow. Just because it's not just one thing, it's a lot.
It's a multitude, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Where it's like I don't know, I don't want to be disrespectful or anything of that nature, of course, but like, I don't know, I don't quite know if speed is the descriptor I would start using nowadays. And I mentioned that in or I've been kicking this in my head when I try to introduce people to the tag fighting genre, because 2XKO is coming out. It's at my locals all the time, and everyone always hits me with the, well, I can't play these games because they're too fast. And I'm like, well, how so? Is it the amount of interactions? Like, you play Street Fighter 6, and I'm a tag player, and I can't stand that game. DI, maybe it's the mental stack you're talking about, like the DI, drive parry, the jump ins, all of that. I'm like, this is too much. And I come from a game where I touch you with Gohan and you die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I literally touch you with Gohan. I'm like, GG. But both me and the player that I'm playing against we shake hands and go, oh, yeah, that was good. Yeah, I whiffed on neutral. Gosh darn. My fault, bro. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I should have reflected there. I know. You got Dragon Rush? I got Dragon Rush. Okay. I get grabbed in Street Fighter 6. I'm shaking. Right, I'm turning into a chihuahua. My snack box is shaking. You hear the keychains. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh shoot! I took the throw against Cammy. What do I do? Like, and that's a game that's considered slower paced. Yeah. So it boils into the next point. Like, what type of system mechanics equals speed? What are we looking at here? Is wave dashing inherently making the game like super fast paced? Is it the amount of interactions? I mean, that's a yes, by the way. But is parry making these games faster paced? Like, what all goes into it?
I think that there are a lot of, I don't know if I want to call them necessarily system mechanics, but I feel like the dynamic between the aggressor and the defender play a really big role in a game that can feel faster or slower. And this is where I address in detail how wrong I was with the statement of the defender has the advantage in Street Fighter. They do not. They do not. It's just a different dynamic between the defender and the attacker. For example, let me make sure I'm in the right spot in my.
Yeah, of course.
Also, I would
shout
say
outs to Lars for the sub.
I would say that in Street Fighter, if someone is down backing, like they're holding block, they don't want to get hit, right? There are obviously options for you to open them up. Throw loops exist. Overheads are a big thing, especially in Street Fighter 6 now that you can do like a button into drive rush overhead to like really button into drive rush overhead or low, right? There's options to open people. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's options to like open people up, but in like the older games, even in games like Third Strike, these options aren't your primary ways of like doing significant damage. They're ways to pressure the opponent into doing a riskier option, right? It's like trying to convince someone to do wake up DP. It's trying to convince someone to like try to tech the throw, them with the grab, like them get their grab shimmy.
There's a lot more of a mental game in a game like Third Strike to kind of add on, because like I said, you're playing at the mercy of parry, and when you're at even mid-level play of Third Strike, everyone knows how to parry. Like, it's like the first thing you kind of nail down about that game. It's ingrained. You find it by accident so easily, right?
Yeah. And I think in Third Strike, parry can also be used as a way to leverage someone, forcing someone into a misplay though. Like if they're doing wake up parry, then obviously okay, well, they're not holding down back. It's time to like either throw them for, well, is there an option select for like parry throw? Is that real?
I mean, yes and no, because there's red parry, and at high levels, like players, they're fishing for that. Like they can be patient and technically parry through it, right? And that's part of what makes the neutral of Third Strike so, it's a dance. It's a straight dance. Like, and that's what that's kind of cutting to the heart of what I'm getting at when I speak in terms of system mechanics and like the way they interact with you as a player. Is there's so many various ways for you guys to interact because of how mechanically deft these faster paced games are, right? Which is what it boils down to. Like a lot of these games that are faster paced, it's players' decision. You know what I'm trying to say? Like the mechanics are there, but a lot of it is us pushing the game to a point that some would argue it shouldn't have been pushed to begin with, or devs have never even really intended, right? Like you look going back to like the Marvel 3 or Marvel 2, Marvel 3 argument, like wave dashing, all that stuff. Like we found that, right? Like we pushed the game to that level. We made it that crazy. You know, Melee has their own stuff, which no one ever assumed it would get to that level, but like it did, right? And it makes for it makes it kind of difficult to talk about some of these things, because it's like, well, how is it optimally played versus, and like how's it optimally played versus how's casuals approaching it versus how are you, the average mid-level FGC enjoyer, gonna approach it? Like there's so many layers, right? Which is why I'm like, I mean, that's kind of why I've been like, well, what defines speed? Like coming to the heart of it, like that, what truly defines speed?
I think system mechanics do play a pretty big role in it, because it inherently will give more depth to the situation and allows more interaction between players. But at the same time, I feel like giving a lot more options to players kind of changes the dynamic in a way that there's more options to account for, and more things you have to deal with. For example, you've heard the sentiment of just take the throw in Street Fighter, specifically,
of course,
right? Yeah. If you just take the throw in Marvel, you die. Which
game? Wait, which game? I'll say which game.
Marvel 3.
Marvel 3 depends on the character. It vastly depends, actually. There are a lot of OTG setups off of it, like with characters like Spencer and characters like Virgil. I mean, he does everything. What doesn't he do? But when it comes to characters like Tronbone, not really. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to certain aerial throws and setups and assists and what you can get out of it, you might be able to get a combo or thing started, but it doesn't necessarily equate to death, right? And Marvel 2 also is a big deal with that. Like, if your sister on cooldown, whatever, maybe like that, not completely accurate.
Okay. Yeah.
It also has to be set up in the corner too. I forgot to mention that. Most of them have to be set up in the corner for the throw. The throw OTGs.
I was about to say I one of my characters is Phoenix Wright, and I was able to lab some like, they take the throw, they die now.
Combos. Right, exactly. But you need resources and stuff for that too, right?
Yes, you need. You definitely need resources.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that's where it comes into play.
Yeah, that's a big thing with system mechanics as well. I think I can definitely agree with that. System mechanics can definitely play a role in that. But I think the point that I really want to get at though is when you look at games like Street Fighter V and you compare it to something like Marvel, like I whenever I was like trying to prepare my piece on me talking about Marvel, I looked over the latest Marvel 3 Evo, and I included the footage as well.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I think the big difference is that for me, whenever it comes to slower games, it usually and it's a spectrum. It's not black and white.
I agree. We're covering that now. It's we already talked about with Third Strike. I'm not here to keep it respectful. These games are in depth.
But whenever you knock someone down in Street Fighter V or something like that, like I said, it's about forcing the opponent to using your options to kind of pressure them into picking something more risky. Hitting them with the throw loops, or hitting them with the overhead that'll lead into like a jab link that'll just knock them back down again. Whenever it comes to tag fighters or other like higher speed fighters, usually what'll end up happening is as soon as you like are knocked down, you kind of have to play like overhead low left right, and also worry about grab.
I'll say to an extent, I think that is a big tag game thing. I would emphasize that is a big tag game thing. But in the world of titles like anime fighters and things like that, which are pretty much sometimes faster than Marvel, I'd argue, right? It varies. Like you said, it varies from the system case, varies from those characters. Which is kind of why why I feel like this is just the video for the video's sake. I know you understand the distinctions, but that's what I mean. Like that's why we have the nuance. Like in a game like Marvel 3, absolutely, right? Arguably Marvel 2 has a lot of that stuff too. But then look at a game like BlazBlue, right? Which is equally as fast, some would argue. It's a very fast-paced game. Has the same kind of stuff. You can literally you get a grab in that game, you get a full combo, right? But there's not really infinites out of that grab, so to speak.
Yeah.
There is a timer on that. Skullgirls is another great example where you can get a grab and it could lead to some cool stuff. but you also have to play around the infinite prevention system, and that leads
Mm-hmm.
to more mix, which is what you're talking about, that
Yes.
8-way mix,
Yes.
right? And like that's a game that
Uh-huh.
was inherently designed off of that tag game sentiment of like, okay, what are you gonna do on the incoming, right? What are you gonna do when the assists
Mm-hmm.
jump at you, right? As your joint pops, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that is because it's funny you bring that up. I'm like, if you use Skullgirls, I would have been like so with you. You know what I mean? Like I would have been right there because the
Uh-huh.
game is built around it. But Marvel,
Yeah.
it's just slightly different in the sense of like so much of that stuff was
Mm-hmm.
play like Melee with Fox Drill Shine. It just
Mm-hmm.
it should never have been like that. Like again, comparing Marvel
Yeah.
2 to Marvel 3, like 3 is just the always the outlier because like aiding is like I said, they're crackheads. They just go crazy. You know what I mean? Those guys went
Mm-hmm.
insane with the mechanics, and it led to the beautiful disaster that is MVC3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um,
Um, like I'm trying to think of like another good example is like, dude, I played season 1 Android 16. Fun time.
yeah, that's a
fun
great
time.
one. That's a great one. Yeah,
And I do remember like he had like a hard knockdown on, I can't remember what exactly it was. It might have just been his like
his command
one
grab,
of his
right?
supers. Yeah, one of his, it might have just been his standard command grab. And then
Okay.
like if you paired that with something like, you know, SSJ Vegeta
Yo,
and like all of a sudden you're like, all right, time to lock
Time
him
to
down,
guess.
and he has, yeah, time to guess,
Yep.
and it's like, all right, and that's like a much different dynamic than you would expect from like a slower game, right?
right,
Like
right.
you're not worried about getting opened up like that over and over and over again. Like you're getting pressured into making a mistake that's like you're getting pressured into using higher risk options.
Right.
I mean, obviously, there's always gonna risk if you're not like teching the throw every time.
Yeah, I was
right?
about
If
to
you're just
say.
hitting the-
Say
Mhm.
it's kind of in that vein of like, I mean, it goes back to the interaction thing, right? It's like how many interactions
Mhm.
do you have? Like that's kind of what the speaking to the heart of what I think considered with the speed mechanics
Yeah.
is like it's just different forms of how many interactions you have, right? It's different forms of guessing. In Street
Mhm.
Fighter, you are blocking high low, so to speak. In a
Mhm.
game like Marvel, you're blocking left right. You're gonna
Mhm.
be these are factors you have to consider. But also the game, unlike say Street Fighter, is prepping you for that. It is giving you
Mhm.
giant flashing warnings like, hey, someone's on the screen right now that's gonna be
Mhm.
on your right. You have 3 seconds to 0.2 whatever seconds to guess this mix up essentially, right? Whereas Street Fighter, the mix up is I'm an FADC in your face for example, and it's either gonna be I phase through you and get a grab and we're gonna side switch or something like if
Mhm.
you're playing Akuma, or
Yeah.
which is technically your 8-way mix. Kage in Street Fighter 5 was like a big. There's that infamous clip
Yes.
of like, oh, I'm gonna block
Yeah,
this
oh, yeah.
wacko mix
I'm
up,
a
right?
black-
And then and then
Yeah.
it gets crouched, right? So it's like
Uh-huh.
it's not to say that he couldn't have prevented it, for example, or
Mhm.
there aren't ways around it. It's just that the interactions mental stacks again are different, and
Mhm.
it all ties back into the player, which is kind of what I want to get to the heart to in terms of the speed, because I consider I consider the speed to be a little bit different in the sense of like if I could pull it up, because this is actually such a good segue, like don't do that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I pull it up in the sense of, does speed equal aggression, which is the heart of the problem here. That's what we're really talking about.
Uh-huh.
How
Yeah.
aggressive is your fighting game? What does that truly mean? What does that truly entail? And
Mhm.
I don't know what is your kind of take on that, right? Because to me, I feel like that's the heart of what's going on here.
I let me think on that, because like I don't want to say speed inherently equals aggression, because
Mm.
there are games that are fast that have characters that slow them down, but they're
Mm.
only acceptable because the speed is the way that it is, right? When you're dealing
I
with
see
Peach
you.
when you're dealing with Peach crouch cancel down smash or Puff Bear, like if the game wasn't as fast as it was, it would turn into like a super hyper defensive game. Like imagine if you like
Smash
imagine
4?
if you oh yeah. Imagine if you didn't have ways to deal with like Chris saying eat lead, open
Right.
fire, eat lead. In a game that is slow pace, that won't fly. That's when you
Okay.
get stuff like Injustice and
Oh my
stuff like
gosh!
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go on your NRS
Bro,
tangent.
bro.
It's all love here. I can't stand NRS. I don't like those guys.
Like that is the game series that now granted I don't play those games nearly enough to give any like even remotely accurate judgment on like how
It's
fast or
okay.
slow the game
I
really
do.
is. But like I've seen so many tournaments of people just getting like full screen like hit over and over again with projectiles, just getting zoned out, blocked out, and
Yup.
it's just oh my
Yup.
god, it's crazy.
I'm in
Skullgirls,
that vote.
even Skullgirls has characters like this, but you know the
Mm.
speed of the game helps you deal with it, and like
Yeah,
I
I
mean
agree.
yeah, like I love. There's like this one clip of like this pro player playing solo Beowulf, and he's like
Oh, I
getting
saw that
zoned out
joint.
by, yeah, getting zoned out by Peacock the whole time, and like, halfway through him like getting chipped to death, he's like, "All right, it's time to get in." He blows like his super meter to like do full jump, like a
Mm-hmm.
full screen jump in, and then she goes full screen and continues to like zone him out. Now, obviously there's plenty of things that could have been done to, you know, there's
Yeah,
right
sure.
answers
Of
there. He
course,
could
of
have
course.
got in. But what I guess I want to say is that like um the speed inherently does not equal aggression.
Mm.
Um but it does play a pretty large factor into it, I would say.
Okay, because I am of the how do I explain this? I agree in that sense, but I also disagree in a way.
Hmm.
I'll kind of elaborate here. I'll break it down. So again, using my Samurai Showdown argument, which is kind of my go-to example because I've played quite a bit of Sam Show back in like when it was out and big and whatnot. And that was the game that I always went to in terms of wait a second, I don't know if I agree with like Marvel and these games always be seen as the faster pace. My other example is like franchise that not many people talk about over here on the US side of the world, but King of Fighters in general, the whole KOF
Hmm.
series, the whole KOF saga. A lot of those games are pretty quick. You know, they got some pretty fast-paced movement, short hops, long,
Hmm.
what are they, super jumps, all that good stuff, right? But they also are pretty neutral heavy. They're very footsies based. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like it because you're just seeing people jump in and basically twerk on block strings and then you get blown up in a TOD. It looks like, which is, hey,
Oh
I
yeah.
love KOF 15.
Hey,
I love
hey,
it.
hey man, I don't really play all that much KOF, but I've seen enough KOF on Does Will It Kill to just know
Okay,
that like,
yeah, yeah.
oh my god,
It's
this
a
game is
crazy
like
game.
that.
It's a crazy game, right? And you would
Yeah.
consider because of how long that neutral is, right? Because I watch and
Hmm.
play a lot of KO 15, for example. That people would consider that the footsies game, right? That's your
Hmm.
slower paced neutral heavy game. But is it though, right? When you get touched in King of Fighters, whether it's on block, whether it's on hit, you're done basically. Like you're exploded. That's why the meta very heavily favors no projectiles because you don't ever want to get
Hmm.
caught lacking. It heavily favors characters that can get in your face quick and do mix up options. That's why Rock was so top tier for a while because that homie literally has a move where he could just phase through you and mix you up for free, and be like, okay, time to guess. And if I touch you with a heavy punch and forward heavy punch, guess what? GG, it's my game. I win. I'll see you in
Hmm.
City of the Wolves. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so to me, it's I'm in the same camp of, well, I don't necessarily think speed equals aggression, but I do think the amount of interactions you have equal how aggressive you're going to play, right? If it takes you
Hmm.
two interactions, so to speak, to get the game going or to win a match, right? You're either probably going to play mad passive Sam Show, which is considered the more neutral heavy game, where
Hmm.
you're like, I'm not going to extend. I'm going to respect my homie's buttons. I don't want to risk anything. That's how the game is meant to be played, and they have system mechanics and things built around that, where it's like, oh, this is a naturally slower paced game. It feels very aggressive. It feels very fast paced in the sense of when you're in that action, it's a scramble fest. You're teching throws, you're whiffing buttons, you're punishing with devastation attacks. It's everything's instant of the moment. That mental stack goes from literally nothing to I have to do 3-4 things in a row. And that could be considered very fast to a lot of players, which is why people kind of don't want to play those types of titles. KOF's very similar. When you're short hopping over projectiles and you're basically Overwatch dive comping into into your opponent's face, right? It's
Hmm.
considered a pretty quick game, a pretty fast paced game, right? When
Yeah.
you look at a game like Marvel, right, so to speak, Marvel 2 is mainly my example because the collection's coming out, but Marvel 2 and 3 in general, that's a pretty quick game in terms of movement options. But when you really look at what's going on and how often people are just holding back and rejecting block, no, action at very high level. You know what I mean? A lot of people are just holding back, push you off, and then okay, let's go back to throwing our assist out and jumping around, right? And taking screen control. Kind of like we were talking about with the vertical and horizontal screen control, right? And that kind of speaks to the heart of that game should be inherently aggressive. You know, people are doing a lot of actions per minute. It should be a TOD heavy game. It should be very hard to open people up. Yet that timer is always clocking around 40-30, unless it's Virgil Zero and Dante. That's again that Evo Grand Finals. I get it, but like that may have not been the best. Like that was literally your guys' 20xx. Like, you know what I mean? Like in terms of melee, that's 20xx for Marvel 3. That's why I'm like, I get it, but from a regular from a non-godlike J-Bro player perspective, because that guy's insane. The game is very, very neutral heavy. And then even when you play a very low to casual level, like tag games take forever. Those games take so. Remember when Dragon Ball first came out, like season 1, season 2? Those tournaments. Watch the VODs. Those tournaments are like 2 hours and a half. It was Smash Ult length. Where Ult's at now. Like it took a while for those stuff to finish, because while it is fast, while people are moving at Mach speed, while a lot of assists are flying, those combos be taking forever. The aggression is not really there. Like the stuff, there's passive things being thrown out in that stack, but it's very obvious passive. Like when you see Kamehameha, okay, we blocking. Oh, I gotta block here. Reflect. Okay, here comes my assist. And like the stack's not there. The stack's it's not that high, right? Which kind of ties into basically my long-winded way of saying speed doesn't equal aggression. Speed and aggression definitely play a factor into each other, especially if your mechanics support it, like Melee. But I think the big misconception is a lot of speedy games like Marvel 3, like MVC2, like Anime Fighters, they have a lot of defensive mechanics built in because they're combating how aggressive it can be, right? And that naturally slows the game down. Guilty Gear Exart had Blitz Shield and things burst, which it basically introduced the burst mechanic. Guilty Gear Strive also has the burst mechanic, the Get Off of Me, which has been radically reworked as of this season, where you can't even like bait burst really anymore. It's hard to explain, but it's harder to bait burst. They made it, added more interactions to Strive and until Slayer, but there are more interactions in the game. So you kind of get the gist there, right? In the sense of these games are aggressive in the same sense that I'd argue Third Strike's an aggressive, fast-paced game, right? Where it's the mechanics of Third Strike, which is a simple one, being parry, that naturally make this game a quicker play. I don't know. Sorry, that was a lot, a little bit of rambly, but thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with pretty much everything you said there. I definitely don't think speed inherently equals aggression, but at the same time, I also think that like I said before when we were talking about like how we would define a fast game.
Right.
I think that it's just a piece of the puzzle, right?
Thank you. Yes, speed, exactly.
Yeah, I think that a faster game or an aggressive game can be a faster game, but it's not necessarily always the case, right?
Right. I just wanted to clear up kind of the misconception surrounding, the traditional. I'm basically saying neutral footsies is a myth. It's never been a thing. That's the TLDR. It's never been a thing. Stop. We gotta stop comparing it like that. The only game I can think of is Sam Show, and even then, as I've discussed, for how long? For 15 seconds before you get blown up, like. You know what I mean? Fighting games are more nuanced, and I think it would do everyone good in everyone's case, and save a lot of potential future videos and whatnot. If we start looking at them as not a 1-to-1, right? Which will gradually lead us into the Multiversus argument, because it shouldn't be Melee. We'll get to that, but we don't need it to be this ultra blitzkrieg pace that the beta was, because that wasn't okay either.
That wasn't it. Yeah,
that wasn't it either. But I understand why people want it to be faster, which we'll talk about. So
I got a list of different benefits of fast games and benefits of slow games. I'd like to eventually get into as well.
Yeah, bet. Let's move on to the next slide and do that next. Because hey, there it is. Oh, whoops. Hey, there it is. Okay, wait. All right, we're back. Hey, there it is. Let's talk about platform fighter. Well, not versus 2D games. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'll discuss my interpretations, but I want to talk about some of these Multiversus fixes first. Let's start with that. Multiversus speed, the benefits to speed, so to speak, or what you have to say about the speed. You kind of take it from here.
Oh, and relatively to Multiversus.
Oh, just in general. Sorry, just in general fighting games. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Okay. As far as whenever it comes to the general benefits of a fast game, obviously, if we're including the stuff that I talked about, like that defines a faster game, which includes
Mm.
things like move speed, of course, but then also mental stack, but also the amount of interactions you have to win the game and the options that are available to any player at any given point in time,
Mm-hmm.
threat range, bubble theory, all that good stuff. All of that can lead to a lot of depth, right? If you have a lot of different options available, this can kind of help the game thrive for a longer time. It makes the game harder to solve in a way if you have a lot more
Facts.
options at your disposal.
Okay.
Um, um, but and yeah, obviously that makes the game last a lot longer. There's also more room for skill expression as well. If you have a lot more
Hmm.
options, there's a lot less of a likelihood that you're going to be playing the exact same way as someone else who's playing even your same
Yeah,
character, right?
I think that's a big one.
Uh,
Yeah, that's
mhm.
a huge one.
Yes, yes, for sure. And that's like a big thing that people really ask for when they ask for like faster paced games, more skill expression. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
a- Another big thing that is great about a fast paced game is it's got an extremely high skill ceiling because
Mm.
if we're going back to the mental stack and being able to, recognize all the different things, the more you play the game, the more you're going to be familiar with the situations and the more that you're going to be able to like the more that you play the game, the more
Mm-hmm.
familiar you're going to be with these situations and the less games you'll lose based on you know for example, if I've literally never been like knocked down by Android 16 before or hit or
Yeah.
Yamcha, it's like there is a skill in learning that. There's a skill involved in learning how all the interactions work, how to deal with offense from all of the different characters,
Right.
and
Right.
in general, it just makes for a higher skill ceiling that's very rewarding on long-term investment. Like the longer you
Yeah.
play, the better you're going to be, and that's just going to be a fact of it.
Right, kind of speaking on the heart of that, one of the biggest examples I used, which was the game that was intended for beginners but ended up becoming the sweatiest fighting I've ever played, Blaze Blue Cross Tag. I am
Mm.
a unabashedly BB tag defender. I glaze that game daily. It's one of the best fighting games ever made. I don't care what anyone says. I know it has its problems. I don't care. It's fun. You know why? It taught me neutral fundies. I'll never take it away from that. And it's because when you have a game that is stripped down to its essentially you stripped a game to its bare essentials, right? An anime game with all these characters that are from very complex systems in terms of persona with persona breaking and the cancels and the status effects, and then you transfer that over to Blaze Blue with its astrals and rapids and etc. Right? Guilty or sorry, not Guilty Gear. What was the other game they had? Was it I Know Heart was in there? Who cares? Point is, they Arc
Mhm.
Sys Games all came together and they said, let's throw them in a
Mhm.
gumbo and give them just reject.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just reject. And I'm like, what the heck is this? You get a tag, you get a reject, you get a free grab overhead, right? And when you play
Mhm.
that game and you start breaking it down, you quickly become accustomed to what benefits you in neutral. Oh, I
Mhm.
really need to emphasize whiff punishing. I really need to emphasize when to call assist, not just to kind of, no offense to early seasons of Dragon Ball, mindlessly throw my beam out, respectfully,
Mhm.
and hopefully I get a combo pickup afterwards, or just use it for a combo extender. No, in this game, it's I'm gonna tag it in and I'm gonna let it rock, and it's gonna be up to you to know when I'm gonna cross you up. Because when I pop cross
Uh-huh.
assault, you gotta guess, and
Uh-huh.
it's that real guess. However, it's never punishing. You'll know the guess because you know there's only two buttons. There's attack A and attack B, and maybe they'll go for that overhead. That is basically the extent of what starts those strings on block. You're either blocking low to basically block everything and reject to get off me, or you're gonna block high when they
Mhm.
do their special move, and they'll jump into the little like Ruby does like a spin crescent moon thingy. You'll know when to block that.
Mhm.
Trust. When Gordo spins out his little blade, oh, that's a block low. I can block low. I can just sit here and block low the whole time. Rejects, get off me. My turn to play. So that game taught me so much about fundamentals of a tag based game, right? Because it stripped those
Mhm.
mechanics down. And at first that looks pretty bad, pretty dumb, right? Why would Orcsys do this? How dare they? They could have made something mad nuanced and complex. Why don't we have rapids on top of personas on top of this in my anime fighter? And the answer is that would have been too much. The answer
Mhm.
is then we would have got a game that would have been drastically slower because now we're gonna be playing around. Persona characters would not be used because they have all their system mechanics in here and they are gonna get status
Mhm.
affected and all that other stuff and it would be whack, right? And then it would just be a Blaze Blue simulator. Well, do you want a dumbed down version of Blaze Blue? Not probably not. So you get the gist. It fell into a unique trapping there, but they found a really smart answer, and it taught a lot of players how to manage neutral in a really healthy sense. And all those players now, godlike Grand Blue players, godlike Street Fighter 6, Diaphone out there, that homie's like mad clean now. I've been following him since BB Tag. He used to whoop me in BB Tag. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy that because they stripped those mechanics back, they still made a pretty fast-paced game. You know what I mean? That, thoroughly taught you the intricacies of its traditional tag fighter, basically, and how to navigate those scenes, which I always respected for.
That's really interesting to hear, because I think a big point of critique that I have for a lot of the quote-unquote faster-paced games in those situations where you really have to guess is I was going to say that it's not very clear whenever you get opened up, like what you should have done wrong, because like at the end of the day there is a lot of like guessing involved, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of
The
variables.
left, right, overhead. Because I played a lot of P4 Ultimax, and that game, when you get knocked down in that game, you are at the mercy of the instant overhead, the cross.
Exactly. The IADs. Yep.
Yeah, I played Akihiko. He has like left, right. It's like he's got like left, right, and if you block for too long, he gets like this block string where he's even more plus on it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That game, to be fair, again, Ultimax, I do not think the game ever got tested. I'm not finna lie. Yeah, I know a regular arena was godlike, but I remember at the time, Ultimax players hated Ultimax. They thought that game was whack. But I definitely get where you're coming. TLDR, I get where you're coming from. Anime games are notorious for having things that aren't really clear to the player. But again, also in quotes, by the way, I'm not. Don't take this for in quotes. In their defense, they did give you an exclamation point to tell you got hit by an overhead.
That is true.
When you watch the replay, they did say, "Hey, you should probably block high here." It's not clear to the player, but they do say, "Hey, you should probably block high here."
Okay, but my issue is not that there is a. I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase this. My issue is not that it's not unclear what you got hit by. Well, in some games it is, because like whenever I was watching back over the 20XX
the 20XX Marvel ZMC, we call it Zero May Cry.
Zero May Cry. Yeah, as soon as I seen like the incoming Virgil, and he's already got the blades out, and he's like
GG
Meaty's the incoming with that weird like blade thing that pulls you in the blade projectile, and you're like, I'm like, dude, like I know I got hit like back low, but what was
the hit that started it?
Like, was there like it still feels like you're having to guess a lot more than
you are definitely having to guess more in titles like that, but I guess I'm trying to emphasize like that is the rare exception to the rule, if that makes sense, not the strict rule. Right.
Okay.
Because when you play a game like Exard, which Lord, does it have its dumb stuff? Don't get. I play Exard. That game. That there's a reason why Bedman ended up the way he did. You fellas do not know that half of what we went through before Rev 2. That character was some Kuso. That was Kusoge. He was doing everything under the sun. But point is, there are things in those games that alleviate the pain, so to speak, right? Which is why I brought up BB Tag as my example. Because like to me, that's how it's well designed. Does it take, just like all fighting games, does it take time to get there? Yes. But to say that it's unclear isn't entirely fair. Like they tell you you'll know when. There are various ways that kind of help you, I guess, parse through the nonsense and cut straight to the heart of it, because the game is so simple in the sense of like, even when you go to lab it or practice it, there's only like 3 things you can do, right? There's basically only 3 things you can do. It's because the system's so freeform with cross assault that it created that appeal, you know what I mean? That accessibility, so to speak. And it's still being played to this day for a good reason.
I would say, first off, dude, I wanna address the really stupid move. Lord Knight, I opened my eyes because I'm not a Blaze Blue head. Arakune,
okay.
that overhead, that jumping low. What is that shit?
That's up there. Yeah, Blaze Blue. They got. Was that CF or was that a Chrono Phantasma era? I don't remember which Lord Knight video.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. All I know is like he was like going over some like ridiculous moves.
I remember that with JM Crofts or something. Yeah.
Yes, and he showed him that like Arakune has like a jumping move that hits low and like gives him his win con, and it's like, that's great. Okay, but obviously that
anime games are notorious, right?
Yes, obviously that's a nitpick, right? That
Yeah,
because
no, I
like you
get
said,
you.
it's an exception to the rule. It's not the rule itself.
Right, and that
But
speaks onto kind of what you're talking about in the sense of a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of this is player stuff. Like to the average anime player, that homie sees that and goes, "Okay, I block low." Like they clock it, right? They clock it.
mhm,
But same with the tag fighting game player that transitions to anime, right? Like they clock it.
mhm.
But if you're more familiar with a Sam show or a Street Fighter, it's a different set of neutral, it's a different set of rules, and that harkens back to the speed argument, and debate, so to speak, that kind of kickstarted everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would also say that there's like somewhat of a difference in feeling whenever and like
Mm.
this is a purely subjective side of the argument. But
Sure,
like
sure.
when you get hit by the four-way mix that Virgil or something would provide, or Zero when he's like got he
Doing
activates and
lightning
it's like
loops. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. When you get hit with something like that, there's this feeling of like, well damn, I guess I just guessed wrong. But in like Street Fighter, if you get like your throw shimmied or your DP blocked, you're like, oh, I fucked up, and it sticks with
Right,
you. You
right.
know that like, okay, I'm clearly making a mistake. Whereas whenever
Mm.
when you get put in those it's time to guess situations, it's very unsatisfying to the player, you know?
Okay, okay. I think I'll meet you halfway. I kind of see it. I think it's just because I come from the land of anime and like tag fighters, where I'm like, I see a giant
Mhm.
counter hit. I fumble the bag. I don't like the announcer's screaming at me,
Yeah.
counter. You
Yeah.
suck.
Yeah,
Why did you
Guilty
get hit
Gear.
by that weak stuff? Like it was like
Yeah.
that in Exart too. In Exart they hit you with the mortal counter. I'm like, what the heck do you mean mortal counter? What do you mean
Dude,
Faust
yeah,
Meteor is a mortal counter? What are you talking about? Like,
dude,
you know what I mean?
dude, yes. In Strive, your mother will know you fucked up.
Exactly, exactly. It's like I
Uh-huh.
get you there. I get you there. I think it's I'll shake there. No, it's more prevalent when you get counter hit in Street Fighter. It's this giant
Mhm.
crunch. It's punish counter. You're glowing orange. I think it is right. You're like, hey,
Mhm.
why'd you press, man? Like, why'd you do that? So I'll meet you in the middle there. I think
Mhm.
it's again two different ways to convey. I feel like the SNK games have it the worst in terms of counter hits and stuff. I can never tell you. I'm not gonna lie. When I get hit in SNK
Mhm.
games, I'm like, oh, I guess I fumbled. Oops.
Mhm.
I shouldn't have pressed there. Okay, and then like my health bar's gone.
Yeah.
um,
But to bring it back around, I feel
sure,
like I
sure.
didn't really talk on platform fighters too much whenever it comes to the speed in those types of games.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
obvious, obviously, speed is a factor not just used for like game balance, but also game feel. You know, a lot of people like Melee, and they
Mm,
like Nasby and all these things because it's not just a fighter, it's also a platformer, right? So
right,
having
right.
faster movement is just gonna inherently feel more satisfying. Whereas like yes, flying around the screen in Marvel and Dragon Ball Fighters, I'm sure is satisfying, but it's like
Mm,
when a big focus on the design of the game is how you move around the screen on the platforms, I can see like how a faster game can feel like a lot of people can get the notion confused that a faster game equals a better game, but
right,
that's
right.
still not always the case.
Rushdown Revolt.
Yeah, Rushdown Revolt, Nasby 2's or not Nasby 2. Nasby 2 I've heard is pretty good. I haven't tried it cuz
I really enjoy
honestly,
both Nasby, so you might be a little careful.
okay.
I'm riding with my boy Void. That's one of my
All
favorite
right.
platform
All
fighters.
right.
I'm joking, brother, but
Nasby, yeah, Nasby 1 is very, very fast, right?
yes, yes.
I think we can all agree to that. And
Overtuned.
yeah, overtuned for sure. But there's obviously an audience for that, right? But
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's important to note that I would not inherently say that because Nasby 1 is the way that it is, it's better than a game than say like Rivals 2, right?
Right, or Rivals one for that case.
Yeah,
No offense, like.
I think that there's a lot of things that you can do to make movement satisfying, and it doesn't just have to
Mhm.
be that you're moving around screen at like Mach speed.
Yeah,
You
and
can,
the. Oh, sorry.
but yeah, it just in general, I think like speed definitely can feel satisfying, but it's
Hmm.
not necessarily how fast you're moving around the screen. It's just your options and how you choose how you're able to move around the screen that can be satisfying. Like if you
Right.
have any platform fighter that the movement I guess feels good, then it's gonna be it's gonna feel good, and
Exactly. Yeah.
not it's not inherently tied to the speed of the game.
Right. I bring it up in my future video talking about the speed of MVS briefly with the comparison between like ult melee's 4, right? Like I feel like 4 that game was a float fest. Like it didn't
Hmm.
it you had to really do things in that game to make it feel good, which is honestly, by the way, why the top tiers got played and why people just started swapping off. Like Cloud and Bayonetta were played heavily not only just because they were good, because they were inherently faster with better frame
Hmm.
data, with better moves, etc. That made them feel better to most players to play, which is why all these random like Cloud and Bayo mains popped up. And it's like because it was good, and they were low key doing things that no one else
Hmm.
in the game could do. And it wasn't that their move sets were too broken or crazy. Well, a little bit in Bayonetta's case, but it was also just that
Yeah.
the game just did not support the movement speed or the stuff these characters are doing at all. Once they
Yeah.
transitioned to Ultimate, where everyone's a little bit a little bit quicker. You know what I'm saying? A little bit faster paced. Some
Yeah.
balancing, of course, was done. Obviously, Klaus
Hmm.
went on the limit for dear life. But
Yeah.
you
There,
quickly see other characters have a chance, have an opportunity to shine. You know.
yeah, when the best way to move in Smash 4 is dash block, there's a problem.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
know?
And that's kind of the heart of what I'm getting at, right? And it was also just like ultimate systems were different, right? Like the platforms were more
Hmm.
sticky. When you went to like
Hmm.
attack a player, you can't cross through them anymore. Like it's like a traditional fighting
Yeah.
game. You're right on top of each other. That inherently, back to the system mechanics that makes the game function and move and perform differently. And that ties
Hmm.
into some of those other games like Nick All Stars Brawl, which my biggest gripe with that game was everything's too safe. Like there's no, is there end lag in that game? I would never know. I've
Hmm.
played it. I don't think any character has end lag, to be honest. You just swing. It's kind of like early MVS to an extent in that regard, where it's like
Hmm.
you could just keep going and just keep attacking, and it's just everything's either gonna whiff or you get a touch and it's just TOD. Like you're done. SpongeBob is carrying you off the
Hmm.
side and you lose, right? And they
Yeah.
found a healthy balance in Nasby too, but unfortunately, I don't even know what happened with that game. I don't know. I played it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I stopped playing it. I think I have nothing. No, I got no rebuttal. It's just something Nasby too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like
I,
it all boils down to those things, and not even into
hmm
like the whole brawl melee stuff.
Yeah. I think one of the big things that I feel like is especially important whenever it comes to discussing like platform fighters, because you have to deal with like because of how the move speed inherently works,
Okay.
and how threat bubbles work in those types of games, with how you can like alter the height at which you jump at people, and
Yeah, short hops
with
and all that good
multiverse,
stuff.
yeah, with multiverses you have IAD and the dash jumps and all that stuff. The big
Mm,
thing to know is that um whenever it comes to more options and more like a higher threat bubble range, like when you're looking at like Fox's threat bubble, and I guess if you're talking in like terms of bubble theory,
sure,
um
sure.
there's a you kind of have to know how big his threat bubble is and what options he's exactly going to be looking for in
Okay.
order to play effectively against that type of character. I mean, that exists in all games, but I want
Right.
to
Yeah.
I want to emphasize it on faster paced games, because in faster paced games the threat bubbles are always going to be larger, and because
Mm.
the threat bubbles are always going to be larger, and in Melee's case, where there's L canceling and it's just a lot less landing lag in general,
Yeah.
um, you're kind of forced to play more preemptively. But that raises the
I get you.
question: how do you play preemptively without a knowledge check? Knowledge
Okay.
check is
Okay.
such a stupid word, because
Yeah,
people
I
have
see
this like
that.
really, it has like a really bad association. But like what I'm essentially trying to say when I say knowledge check is you have to inherently know what the character is looking for,
Hmm.
and in order to be able to effectively play around it. You can't whiff punish in Melee without positioning ahead of time and knowing the threat range of Fox.
Right. I kind of see that angle. Yeah. I
If
don't.
if
No, yeah, you're good. You're good.
mhm. But obviously it exists to an extent in all games. It's not just an issue of other games, because like I
Hmm.
mean, look at Chun Li stand heavy punch, right? It's if you don't know the threat range of that, obviously you're going to get smoked by that over and over and over again. But I think the difference whenever it comes to fast and slow games, circling back around to what you were talking about,
Right.
is the number of interactions needed, right? If you
Yeah.
get stumped
Yeah.
out by Chun-Li stand heavy punch, you're like, damn, that move's big, and you kind of have a few more instances to figure out how to deal with that type of move. But in like
Okay.
melee, if you miss position and Fox runs at you and hits you with nair or a drill, you're like, oh, there's a chance I'm dead here.
Right. Right. There's a chance like it's
Yeah.
GG. I'm gonna have to recollect my thoughts on the next stock. Right.
Yeah. You're already thinking about like, what do I do next stock? And granted, it's not 1-to-1 like that because
Right. Right.
because you do require a lot of reads in order to
Yeah. Because
actually
I'm
close that stock.
Yeah, I'm not like super versed in the melee space. Like to me, it's super optimized now, where I feel like any even mid level player will hit you with the nuh-uh, because actually you can see stick buffer roll in this exact frame, and I know how to do that because
Yeah.
I'm gold and Slippy, and I'm like, holy dude, you got it.
Yeah.
And again, like as me, like comparing it to the Marvel perspective, kind of circling back to the traditional games and how we approach knowledge checks and our faster paced entries like anime fighters, like BlazBlue, for example, Arcana hits us with the low overhead. We're like, dang, okay. We look at the replay, or we look back at the interaction, and we're looking at more at the totality of it, right? Like, oh, I got hit here, I lost the round, or maybe lost the game, right? But I know when I look back at the replay, I look back at what happened. Oh, green. Green exclamation point. I have to block low. Like now I know for sure when I see this homie charge up, I have to block low, right? And it circles back to the Marvel 2 theory, where it's like, oh, I'm seeing a beam come across full screen, right? I'm seeing Magneto fly in, alley oop above me, lands, and he's doing the toe stepper, right? He's trying to scuff my J's. I gotta block low. I can already block low on beam, right? So it creates that pattern, right? Where I mean, to us, that's at least the people I speak to, circling back to BB Tag as well. That's kind of we solve the knowledge checks, where it's like, oh, this actually isn't like untechable or unbeatable, right?
Yeah.
There's option selects and stuff, and sometimes, which people forget, you could just DP. In tag games, infamously, you could just call your assist. If you play Marvel 2, just call Captain Commando. Like that, I don't even have to deal with the mix. Just boom, it's invincible, right? So there's so many different ways to approach knowledge checks in like traditional games. It's like kind of why platform fighters to me are always like very hard. I'm not to compare the two. They always have similarities. Everything's a fighting game. We all have neutral and footsies and stuff like that. But when I play melee, it's they call it freeform jazz for a reason, or whatever they say. Whatever, I don't know what the melee fans say now, but it's freeform for a reason. There are so many opportunities and options you have when Fox does Drill Shine, as you showed, where I'm like, if I'm in this situation, I'm throwing my controller. I'm good. You guys got it. You know what I mean? Like I've played my fair bit of melee, but like, that seems like so many factors to open up, but as you fill it out and play, you kind of figure the situations out.
You definitely learn as you play, and I want to reiterate the knowledge checks, no matter what game you play, are. Oh, you good?
No, sorry, I just dropped something. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I want to reiterate, they exist to an extent in all games, right?
Yes,
like,
of course.
You're not gonna beat a Ryu if you don't know how to jump over his Hadouken, right?
Right. Exactly.
Or Guile Sonic Boom or anything like that. The difference is, and this is circling back to your initial point on, how many interactions it takes to win the game.
Yep.
Yeah, you have more time in game to figure out how to beat that thing. Whereas like, in the faster paced games, you were like, oh, I just lost because I didn't know how to deal with that thing in that moment.
Right.
And
yeah, I kind of see that angle too, where I feel like I guess I should have circled back to that as well. I feel like that's also variable to an extent. I think it depends on the player. I mean, that's what I'm getting at. It's all semantics at the end of the day. Like, I know theoretically Street Fighter, like Street Fighter 3, right? Or Street Fighter 4. Well, whatever, Street Fighter 5. Doesn't matter. Street Fighter in general. You theoretically should have more interactions after taking the throw in the corner, right? But if your defense is sloppier, you don't quite understand these things, or Chun-Li hits you with drive rush overhead, and you're like, okay, I got hit, darn. It's like where just the Let's Go Gambling came from with Luke. It's like, I know the answer, but if I'm getting drive rushed into whatever, like it causes the issues. Which is, I guess, like kind of what I'm getting at. Like, you have more chances to interact for sure, and figure things out. But I think it's just more so in the heat of after getting hit, if that makes sense. Like after getting hit, you have more options. Whereas like in faster paced games, like you just get TOD'd, and
Mhm.
your interaction or your supposed takeaway from that is I got to go study the tapes. You know what I mean? Versus like Street Fighter,
Mhm.
where it's like I theoretically I have a chance to sit back and be like, well, what am I doing wrong in corner here? Like why am I not out this corner immediately, right? And there's a
Mhm.
lot of different answers they have to that, which is drive reversal, throwing to get out the corner. You can beta move out, DP, like all that good stuff. Um, so yeah, like
Mhm.
I definitely see that angle. But then in the opposite case, you have a Sam Shore KOF where it's like all your interactions are basically are done in neutral, where you're just fishing, like
Uh-huh.
and then once you get hit, like it's same arguably same speed as a SF or as a
Uh-huh.
traditional game, but you only get two interactions, right? Similar to a tag game, and
Mhm.
like that's always it always kind of brings up that case.
Mhm. Now something I would like to, I guess, get clarity on for my own personal sake, and I guess for
Sure,
anyone who's
sure.
also viewing sake. Um, so the way I view like you getting hit with like the knockdown throw loop, drive rush overhead by Chun-Li or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The way I view that is that in order for the person to get an opening, they have to call out a very specific option that you do, right? I mean,
Okay.
obviously there's things like safe jumps and there's things
Yeah,
like
there's a
safe
lot
jump
of
like yeah.
yeah, I
There's a
get what you
lot of
mean.
little things that allow you to have multiple guesses and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
whenever I look at tag fighters and stuff like that, it doesn't really feel like it's the aggressor's job to find out the one thing that the opponent's not doing and open them up
Ooh.
that way. It feels more like the defender has to guess the one thing that the aggressor is trying to do and hope that they
Um.
like succeed. I'd like some
So
clarification on that.
here's where I kind of contest that, and especially in like a tag, even in a melee environment. Again, we've seen characters like Peach and stuff, right? I'll kind of talk about that
Mhm.
briefly. In a game like in a game, it's gonna be a little hard to explain. Essentially, the way I see it in the faster paced tag esque fighting games, there is no true defender. You are both
Mm.
equally the aggressor, in the sense of that you both have access to similar toolkits, especially when you look at a highly optimized game like Marvel 3. I think the end of it was just ZMC, if I'm not mistaken, was literally grand finals. It was literally Zero May Cry versus Zero May Cry. They both had options
Mhm.
to the exact same thing. They both can be the exact same aggressor. They both have comeback potential with Virgil X Factor level 3. And
Mhm.
if you watch Marvel 3, and have seen comps and stuff, you would know the game's like renowned for Virgil coming back, right?
Yeah.
Who technically is the aggressor. Now, why do most of those comebacks happen? The aggressor overpushed his advantage. he called an
Okay.
assist out and got blown up for it. There's definitely answers like the assist spam and things of that nature. Well, what is your team you're running, right? What do you have anyone on your team that is countering said assist? Are you knocking the
Mhm.
assist out of the way? How are you moving a neutral to begin with, right? What buttons are you pressing? Are you wave dashing forward and pushing advantage even though you know Virgil's on screen? You know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
uh, not Captain Commando, sorry, Spencer can grab you full screen and potentially mess with your flow. Like there's so many variables. Of course, because that being said, still faster paced game. There's a lot of answers and question, answers to the question there. But at the end of the day, like you both equally have access to the same tools, right? When the aggressor gets
Mhm.
started. In a game like Marvel 3, you have defensive options. It's just you have to find the gap. It's not the same traditional gap as in Street Fighter where there's like a true block string, you do your block string, and then okay, I can as a defender start pressing advantage, right? I can drive reversal here, I can bait out their
Mhm.
throw attempt, I can EXDP on wake up or whatever it
Yeah.
may be, right?
It,
And
it's a little bit more clear where your turn is, I'd say. Yeah.
right. And I want to emphasize it's because majority of people have experience with it and just how the game flows, right? And Drive Rush
Mhm.
obviously threw kind of a wrench into a lot of those things, right? And arguably parry and third strike. But point is, it's more clear cut because it's familiar. In a tag game, however, it's there. The gaps and strings are there, right? The aggressor has to be essentially be frame perfect all the time, right? In order to get some of these things started. For example, like with Virgil, which is why when you go back and watch the Evo set, you're gonna see that guy advancing guard a lot. And what does that do? Push full screen. it pushes full screen. Now you can advancing guard most majority of assists. You cannot do anything about those. Those can lock down. But that's also where you have to come in and call in your stuff, or call in your assist, or call in your things to cover your yourself to start your aggression, right? And you will see that seesaw effect happen a lot at optimize all those plays. The reason why the aggressor looks like they're so OD in anime fighters and tag fighters especially is because they are. It's because they are exploiting your weak defense. It's because the defense mechanics, they're not fully taking advantage of them. Their mental stack's too high. Like, I'm just going to block it out. I'm not going to spend any bar. I'm not going to spend a bar to advancing guard. I'm just going to block it out. I need this for later. I need this for a cross assault combination. I need this to do my invincible super later. I need this for astral pop, for Blaze Blue, for example. I need this for overclock so I can start things, later. I need this for blitz shield, for guilty gear, for example. And I need to save my burst, right? As you probably know in Strive. And that's why it feels like when they get aggression started, there's not really not many answers. But as you know, in games like Strive, you can DP still. Like, you can't homie Virgil, he could have just teleported out. There's many times where you could have just played zero, like, oh, I'm out, lightning looped. Like, I'm just gonna dip, right, and I'm gonna start my offensive and put you in the corner. But because of how optimized the game is, and because of also just like you said, how oppressive it can be, those options got stuffed out because they were guessing wrong consistently. Unfortunately, like that's just how it is. So it and that kind of adds to kind of the melee debate, or sorry about my mic, but kind of the melee debate and things of that nature, where it's like that's what it looks like when games have been pushed to their breaking point, right? Especially the faster paced games, right, where it feels like you as a defender, you have no options. You definitely do. It's just that they're not clear cut. They take a little bit of getting used to, and also takes risk. That's the biggest factor. It takes a lot of risk. Is it you're either gonna die off of chip or getting killed by a TOD, or you get the TOD or you kill off of chip. You decide. Like it's up to you. Sometimes you got to go for the risk it all DP. And that's kind of what adds to the factors of why those games feel the way they do. There's definitely answers, and there's definitely ways to go about it. BB Tag, I always bring up as like my main example of ways that you can make the aggressor kind of bend to your will. There's so many comebacks that happen in that game because it's like, nope, I know exactly what you're trying to do here, and I'm going to snuff out your assist and get a whole happy birthday, and I win, right? And Dragon Ball, especially at high level right now, like that is basically where the game's at. Like, everyone's happy birthdaying, everyone's calling out just how flawed a lot of defensive options are and stuff. Or sorry, their offensive options are, because it's fake. A lot of it's fake. That's not a true block string. So now people they're not labbing combos. We found the TODs. Now we're labbing. Okay, well, what's my good block string? What's my true setups? What is like my optimal way to do things? Because in Marvel's case, right, you can only call a certain amount of times. You still have to like touch the ground and like wait for that little bar to recharge, right? There's only so many times you can get your stuff started before it's the defender's turn, So all of those are factors as to why it feels oppressive, but it's usually just, unfortunately, players making bad calls, because again, it's faster pace. You're gonna make many more mistakes because the stack is higher than, say, Street Fighter, where it's super clear cut, and I go, okay, well, I kind of know what to do here, and I get like more interactions to make more mistakes. It's just it's breakneck, so to speak. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, all right. I'm glad you could shed some light on that, because like I said, I'm not a huge like tag fighter person. I did the research for the video, but obviously it ended up being
for sure
pretty flawed. I wanted to make sure that I had a solid understanding of the levels of, like, because while you were talking, I was thinking about okay, so is there just more opportunities to reset a block string and stuff like Marvel? And then I had to reconsider. It's like, well, you could argue that there's also a lot of opportunities to reset block string whenever you're talking about slower games like Street Fighter 5 and 4. You need to kind of like figure out, because like a lot of the Street Fighter 5, whenever it came to keep extending your advantage state after like a block string, was like, all right, you always have to like keep the thread of dash up afterwards, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That was like, so
that V trigger, or sorry, V reversal, like all those things.
So yeah, that is something that's like very prominent in pretty much every game, regardless of speed.
Right.
Just knowing when block strings end. So I can agree with that. I'm on board with
that. The thing is like it's the biggest takeaway is, at the end of the day, and this isn't any disrespect or anything like that, what it boils down to is there are players that don't mind getting beat on, so to speak, and having a
Mm-hmm.
chance, right? They feel like they have a chance, right? Even though, let's be real, at higher levels of the games like Street Fighter, it's very minimal. You know,
Mm-hmm.
once that shimmy's red in Street Fighter 6, you're getting DR'd on, and you're putting
Yeah.
in the corner, and it's hard. In Third Strike, once I parry, and I know you're going to do the same thing again, I'm going to parry it, and you're going to get blown up. Especially as optimized as that game is, as a great example, because that used to be like the neutral game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, basically, all the top tiers have TODs. Like
Oh yeah.
Chun Li has a TOD, like or not Chun Li, but like Makoto has a TOD. Yun and Yun, I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure the one that swipes the blue hat guy. That
Yeah.
homie's OD, right? So like they're
Yeah.
these slower paced games because they've pushed the defensive habits and the offensive habits to their breaking point, right? Like it's crazy, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? But
Yeah.
like I
Yuri,
guess.
Yuri.
Wait, sorry, who's that?
Sorry. I was just gonna say Urian knocks you down. It's unblockable.
Yeah,
Time. It's like,
yeah, it gets reflector, baby. Like,
uh-huh.
you know what I'm saying? Like, the thing is, these games, they, on the surface now, because we're into them, we're playing them. You know, some of them aren't even fully optimized, like Street Fighter 5. No offense, like it never really got its full time to shine
Mm-hmm.
because we move on to
Mm-hmm.
games so fast, right? But when you look at a
Mm-hmm.
game like these classic tag fighters, because people spend so much time with them, you know what I mean? The aggressors are naturally like, I found my team. It's been like this since 2011. They've had, almost a decade, so to speak, of time to figure out this tight knit block string, and then the defender's like, okay, I know the gap, I can tag here. Oh, he's smarter. I shouldn't have pressed there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so it's all the same stuff. It's just in different fonts, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then to get back to the point of the meta interactions you have, it just boils down to being honest with ourselves as players. Do you mind getting TOD? Like, are you comfortable with
Yeah.
that? You know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
for me as a tag gamer, if when 2XKO comes out and I get 2 touched by Ari, I'm like, okay, GG, valid. I knew not to do this, that, and that here, right? I'll clean it up next time.
Mm-hmm.
But I know majority of players, that's not gonna happen to XKO. They'll be better than that. But I'm just in general, a majority of players are like, this game blows. This game
Yeah.
sucks. I don't want to deal with that, right? And then for me on the flip side, like I don't like the feeling of like SF6, for example, where I feel like I guess
Mm-hmm.
wrong 3 times, like I get blown up, and I'm like, dang man, like I go back and I can be like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have pressed heavy punch here. Like I get it. But it feels bad. It's like, you tell me I had one more. It's one of those like I had one more and I couldn't, convert, type of thing, or I had one more I couldn't get my right damage output, like, and it's all. That's when it starts getting into like personal semantics of what do players
Mm-hmm.
appreciate, and all that stuff, and that's kind of a good talking point too, because it's the argument like what is the best for a majority of players? Are faster paced
Yeah.
games better for the platform fighter community because that's maybe what they're known for, maybe what they're into? Are slower paced games better for them, like what Multiversus is trying and attempting at? Like it's a
Mhm.
really good conversation point. Or
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
point.
I agree. I am really curious to see what 2XKO is going to be like, just because like the devs have went on and they've said that they want to make sure it's not like a TOD type of game, because like
Yeah.
imagine if you're playing with like a teammate or something and you get hit with the TOD because your teammate
Right,
accidentally
right.
burst at the wrong time, and it's like,
Exactly.
oh, okay. So
I know they're
and
trying
then
to prevent that.
yeah, for sure. I know that they want to make it. They want to keep it so that like both players have like a good amount of time where they can play the game. So I am kind of curious to see if it's going to be like a 2-touch game, a 3-touch game.
I feel like from the brief time I played, there was quite a few amount of interactions I had. I was impressed. I got to play it at Evo last year, and I was like,
okay.
I actually get like there was some decent stuff going on. Not to well, maybe I'll talk to you in the DMs about that later. I'll send you some footage and
All
stuff.
right, all
I think that game's gonna be pretty dope. But yeah,
I got in
I definitely
the.
agree.
I did get in the alpha playtest. They sent me the email the other day. I'm excited.
Oh, nice. I got
Mhm.
I gotta check my joint, but I did all the signups and stuff, so I'm hoping I get selected for August.
Mhm. All right. So
Um,
is there another slide you'd like to move on to?
I think that was basically it. We just gotta talk about Multiversus Speed. That's
Okay.
the TLDR. I'm gonna pause this. I don't want to play, but that's the TLDR. So, what are your overall stances on Multiversus Speed? To wrap
Okay.
up here.
So, for the big thing I want to state is that I do not think the speed is the issue, especially if we're going by your definition, saying that the amount of interactions is kind of helps define the speed. Because like realistically speaking, there's like a lot of situations where people like guess right like twice in a row and people die. Especially with my main. My
Yup.
main is Jason. I will
Yup.
read someone's dodge one time after like hitting them in neutral and they will die. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
awesome, cool. So but I think that there is a lot of other issues in regards to the game's speed and how it feels.
Mm.
I think that in here, let me go over. I have a list of things that I
Sure.
think are issues for the game that I don't that people will commonly say I hate how slow it is, but I've tried to piece together a bunch of like legitimate concerns that I think should
Yeah.
be addressed.
Okay.
Um one of the biggest things as far as like the game's feel as it feeling too slow is
Okay.
that let's see, movement isn't just slow but it's sluggishly slow. There's like a weird startup period on a
Mm.
lot of movement options that you have in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, I would really love to get a screenshot of like
Yeah. Let's see.
Steven.
Oh,
Here,
Steven?
yeah.
Let me see if I can throw it
Yeah.
up. I'll see what I can do.
If just try to get like a screenshot or a frame by frame of Steven
Okay.
doing a jump.
Oops. Sorry.
You'll notice that there is a lot of squash and stretch on that character, bro.
Yeah, it's like over. How do I explain it? It's like over animated. Well, I don't want to say that because like animations are
Yeah.
good, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like, there's a little too much
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, and it feels like it takes a long time from when you press the button from your character to get to point A to point B. Even when you start
Yeah.
dodge jumping, there's like a set amount of time that you have to go through the dodge before you can cancel the jump, and that feels really clunky, right? Whenever you're
Right.
moving
I
around
agree.
and playing the game.
I agree.
There's also a lot of other little things, especially if you're used to other platform fighters or fighting games in general, where it feels floaty and slow and sluggish. I think one of the
Right.
biggest offenders is the fact that how aerial move lag works when you come into contact with the ground. A lot of people will complain that it feels like they're just floating
Oh,
the whole
wow.
time. It's because you have to wait until the move ends until like you to actually hit the ground, and that feels weird whenever you come from stuff like Street Fighter, where as soon as you like do the aerial and you hit the ground, you're done,
Right.
or Smash
Right.
where there's like landing impact and landing lag. And I feel like the idea was for I feel like that idea worked fine with the fast pace of the old game, but in this like slower engine, I feel like we kind of need to bring landing lag back, and I'll talk about
Yeah.
things like ways we can fix it, but it just feels floaty, it feels gross and sluggish.
Yeah.
Like even if like it, it feels sluggish, but at the same time, people will also complain that there's not enough whiff lag on moves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're talking about because that kind of speaks to the grander issue I personally have with Multiversus in its current state, which is like the game just doesn't feel good. Like you summed it up in a very like explicit way, which I appreciate. But like from a casual like observer, like whatever perspective, like the game, when people pick it up, when I had my friends like try this game out for the relaunch, they're like, oh, it just feels bad. Like they didn't even have like a way to describe it. They mainly just hit me with like, it feels bad. I feel like my characters, everyone's hefty. Like I don't know why Harley feels like a 100-ton weight from like a safe. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I kind of get it. Like I know like when I do certain actions and moves, it's like it feels weightless. It feels like I'm floating through the air. Like when I do Harley's up B, I'm like, oh, this feels great. When I do her side B, I'm like, oh, I'm literally gliding, right? But like when you're doing the moment to moment, that's why her slide was so overused. Like it, no offense to the nerfs and stuff, but like part of why people were using the slide wasn't just because it was the combo tool. Like it was also because it was one of her main movement options, dog. Like that's what made her feel good. That's what people were using it. It just happened to lead into a combo and give people stuff, right? And that's why I'm like nerfing that. Like that wasn't it's a good answer. It's a good start, but similar to the Killer Instinct conversation I was talking about, it's curing one of the symptoms of the disease, not necessarily curing the disease, which is the movement systems in general feel weird. They feel hefty. They feel like they need a little bit of help. I just went through the frame by
Mm-hmm.
frame of Steven, by the way, and that explains so much because I don't think there's a hitbox on the
Yeah.
squash and stretch. That actually explains why I keep whiffing. Which I'll talk
Uh-huh.
about. I'll talk about some of that
Yeah.
stuff later. Briefly
Yeah.
after this, but yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the animations are just over exaggerated, and it feels sluggish when you press the
Mm,
button and it takes longer than you expect for your character to get from point A to point B, and I think
right.
that's a big problem with it. But the slow sluggish feeling isn't the only problem
Sure.
with
Sure. No.
multiverses. I think a big part of multiverses issues right now is it's completely around jabs and how dodges work.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay. I'm glad. I'm glad we're on the same wavelength. Wait a second. This is based. I'm.
yeah,
I'm happy. I'm
yeah.
happy. Okay.
J-
Hit me
jab
with it.
is your best. Jab is your best combo starter. It's your
Mm-hmm.
lowest in lag move. It's
Yup.
your fastest move, and
Yup.
with how dodge cancels work, it also makes it your best move for whiff punishing. So
Exactly.
it a lot of issues stem from just how core jab is to the gameplay, and I feel like we need
Mm-hmm.
to start bringing back the power from jab and maybe putting it into other places, because I
Right.
feel like you should never have an option that is like the best option for every situation.
Right. Right.
And feel like I feel like whiff punishing is difficult, but it's because
Mm-hmm.
they don't allow for other whiff punishing options. Dodge cancels are the main way you whiff punish in this game, and that inherently
Mm.
will create a more dodgy game, especially when you're working with low in lag moves like jab, right?
Yeah.
When you start
Exactly.
seeing people when you start seeing people do jab dodge jab dodge jab dodge until one of them hits, it's like that's not satisfying at all.
Right.
It sucks. It feels terrible.
Yeah, it's
Um
funny because you brought up exactly what I'm bringing up on my next piece on this game because I was like the issue is the way the dodge like to me I was more on the way the dodge mechanic works and the way moves interact with dodge is kind of how I described it where I'm
mhm,
like it's I didn't really bring up the jabs because I think the jabs like reworking that system would low key at this point might fundamentally break the game, which I'll talk about briefly. I think
mhm,
there's so much of the game hinges around getting a grounded starter for a majority of the cast that taking that away from them is going to create a slew of other problems, which I'm low key
mhm.
assuming the devs have figured out, which is why they've like been very cautious around touching jabs and whatnot as the patches have gone on.
I think I do actually have a list of things that I feel like could help address that.
Okay, sure, sure.
But yeah, but we'll get into that whenever I start talking about like
Yeah, we'll talk
changes that I
about
would
general
suggest.
multiverses problems.
Yeah.
I'll join you there too.
Um.
I will say that for now, in terms of the speed and my I guess neck of the woods, I don't think there needs to be like sweeping changes done to the speed. I think there needs to be an
Mhm.
animation overhaul, essentially.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
think necessarily that boosting the game forward or things of that nature are the answer. Like it's gonna essentially
Mhm.
revert itself back to beta, and that's gonna cause a slew of other problems, especially with the way the game moves now. If we buff the speed, as everyone would say, and
Mhm.
that's not gonna be the answer you guys are looking for. Because now we're gonna create a game where it's still dodge heavy. We're still not with punishing anything because it's very difficult to do. And
Mhm.
we're still not really answering the heart of what makes multiverses frustrating to play for a lot of people getting into it. You know.
Yeah.
And it
Mhm.
also doesn't benefit twos or ones.
Yes, I agree. I think that there was an issue that was unforeseen in the game feel whenever they brought
Mm.
over all the models and animations from the old game. You know,
Yeah,
because like,
yeah, no, it's an Unreal Engine 5 thing for sure. I was gonna
uh-huh.
talk about that.
Yeah, whenever they brought everything over, I don't think they thought about how the added squash and stretch would interact with the slower movement of the game, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Mm-hmm.
was harder to notice, and they had to kind of exaggerate it beforehand because the
Yeah.
character models were a lot smaller and the movement was inherently faster. So, while it may not have felt like you were, the squash and stretch might have hurt that feeling of getting to point A to point B. I think that just because how fast the movement was, you didn't really have that same dissatisfaction, you know?
Right. I agree. I
Um,
agree.
but before we move on to like other before we move on to old multiverses and
Right.
some suggestions for fixes, I do want to also tackle two other problems that I think are kind of frustrating with the game
Okay.
that are a little less talked about. And one of them is that platforms are usually pretty unimportant, and that's a pretty cardinal sin
I
for it's a pretty cardinal sin for a platform fighter. I think that
yeah.
they serve as a annoying they serve as an annoyance when you're trying to land. The more
Yeah.
often than not, when I'm counterpicking people in bracket or discussing like stage or what stage should I take this character to, the
Mm-hmm.
platforms aren't, oh, I get extensions and I can move better on platforms, or I have better ways to deal with this move on platform. No,
Mm.
it's this character has a hard time landing. So I'm
Right.
gonna
Right.
pick platforms, and it's gonna make them have to go through like several different layers in order to land. It's like,
right.
all right,
Right. No, I get you. I'm in the similar boat. I bring up the platforms too, but in the sense of like they're I basically so they're just too hard to interact with. Like they don't really
yes,
contribute much to gameplay in its current state. And on top of that, like when they do, it's always negative. Like it's always
hmm
a net negative. Like Dexter's Lab, when I fight Dexter's Lab ones against like a Finn, I'm like I might as well pack it up. Like this
yeah,
homie is just either it's like waiting at the bottom and it's this weird like cat and mouse. Like I can't jump because I'm funneled down middle and there's not really much counterplay there. I can't
yeah. How do you get
dive
on top of them?
down. Yeah, I was like, I don't really know what to do when he knocks me up. I guess I'll just camp top. And then you gave it the stop camping, and I'm like, well,
Yeah,
maybe don't design it this way. Don't take away
yeah,
my dodge meter. Um,
yeah. Platforms, like you said, they're more a net negative than a
yeah,
positive.
yeah, for sure, for
And while
sure.
they, uh, but I think another issue whenever it comes to stage layout and like how
Mm.
you operate with the stages though is that I still think ledges are a little too safe.
Yes.
I feel like the slower nature of the game would inherently put more emphasis on stage control and work like whittling your opponent to the corner, right?
Okay.
Whereas like your positioning is inherently more important. Um so, uh, because of that, you would think that okay, spacing's more important, and controlling stage and gaining space is more important. So surely, when
Mm.
people are at the ledge, they're at a disadvantage, right?
Right, and it's like,
Un-
nope.
Unfortunately, up airs are usually designed to be better than down airs in this game. Um, like if
if
you
I,
look at Bug's up air in comparison to his down air, or
mm-hmm.
Jason up air in comparison to his down air, you can see that one of them is clearly better than the other. And
Mm.
because of the nature of ledges and how you don't really get penalized for being on the side of the stage nearly as much,
Yeah,
they can
no.
just kind of like plank there, and most of the time you just have to like wait for them to like start getting like um ledge fatigue, I think is what it's
Yeah,
called, or
or they
like
just take.
you have or you have to like position way above the ledge and really hope that you're on top of your whip punish on their up air.
Right,
And it's
right.
like,
It's like it's weird. It's a weird interaction. It gives you Smash 4 vibes, respectfully. Like, but
mhm,
pre Cloud Bayo era, like it definitely took me back. I was like, oh shoot, I've been here
yeah,
before.
yeah. It was like it's very strange because, like I
Mm,
said, you would think that the slower nature of the game and the higher emphasis on like slowly taking stage and with it like pushing your presence and like pushing your opponent into the corner through
right.
like your threat range and stuff, you would think that would, put them at a disadvantage, but it really doesn't. And I think that's a
Yeah,
big
no.
problem right now.
I agree with that. I'm in a similar boat in that regard where I feel like they are too safe. I didn't quite have an answer, so to speak. I can't quite pinpoint why. I feel like it was a combination of mechanics for me. It might be just because I'm also a Harley player, but I'm like I feel like the dodging is too loose
hmm
in the sense of like I feel like I can't see the end lag on it. Like I know you dodge through me and I theoretically can punish it, but like by the time I'm ready, they're
hmm
already doing an action and I don't quite know how to explain it. Could be skill issue,
hmm
to be fair, could be skill issue. But it also just got very frustrating and like made basically interacting with ledges or off stage gameplay like just a non thing. You either dodge cancel hammer to
Hmm.
get them off, or I kind of just wait on stage and ladder combo, or
Yeah.
ladder.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Like those are just some of the issues that I found that I was able to not only like, be frustrated with myself that I would really like to get fixed, but also like
Hmm.
how I've been trying to like piece apart like the complaints from the community, right? Because a lot of the
Right.
time, like you said, when people complain about this game, they don't say, they don't say that, oh, I think that the game feels slow or sluggish because of this, this, and that. They say
Hmm.
the game feels slow and sluggish, and that's the end of it. And
Yeah,
that's like,
yeah.
I feel like that's hard for player first to work with. You know what I
Right,
mean?
because they don't know what to
Um,
pinpoint, but that leads into that whole convo I was having like at the beginning, where it's like we if you have problems, like you it's okay to speak up and like critique why,
yeah,
without having like a firing squad like sent to you, essentially,
yeah,
essentially, you know
yeah,
what I mean? Which we all want the game to do well. That's the TLDR. We all want the game to do well.
yes,
It's just the different ways of going about
hmm,
it, different ways of discussing it. I
yes.
guess lastly, let's talk about just overall like fixes we should have for player first. That's actually the last slide. But
But
yeah, let's talk about overall.
before we get into that, I really want to talk about old multiverses, dude. I got to
Okay,
talk about
okay.
why
I'm
it's
curious.
not
I'm
it.
curious.
All right. So you guys forget that a lot of the mechanics that were supposed to like de-incentivize dodging weren't
Mm-hmm.
added yet. Burnout existed on a very surface level. You didn't have intangibility, but you still had all the same movement. Whereas in Burnout,
Mm,
locked out of you're locked out of like jump canceling it for a set period of time. You're committed more
whoa.
to the
Okay.
dodge, and you don't have access to parry. Uh,
Okay.
right, Burnout is significantly worse. But in the old game, you didn't really have that, and because of how far and how fast you moved, usually being out of meter didn't matter as much as you might think.
Right.
People were still able to dodge out of situations,
Right.
even if they had no meter. Um,
Okay. It's kind of
another,
funny you bring that up because like I feel like even in its current state, I'm still struggling with that. If that makes sense. Like I
mhm,
know
mhm.
people are in burnout, but like, I'm still chasing. Like I can't. I feel like I'm often having a difficult
Yeah.
time punishing and finding ways to get in, even though I'm like I theoretically should be allowed to whiff punish, but I think
Mhm.
it's a grander issue. I'll kind of talk about later with some of the critiques I have towards
Mhm.
MVS and some of the design
Yeah.
choices.
I think Burnout was a very good step in the right direction, but it's
I
still a
agree.
little bit it's still a little bit too difficult to punish someone in Burnout. Granted,
Mm.
I've had plenty of times where I've been playing twos and I'll say to my teammate, "Oh, they're in Burnout," and they will just die. And I'm like, "All right, cool." So they do still need to be careful with it because
Yeah.
especially in the twos format where, people can take advantage of Burnout even harder.
Oh, I forgot.
Um
Yeah, that's the biggest
yeah,
thing. In twos, it's
yeah,
different. It's different.
yeah, you just have to be careful whenever it comes to burnout because if you make it like too punishing, then obviously
Yeah,
people are going to be playing a lot slower and it's going to feel even more sluggish and people
yeah.
won't want
Leading
to
into
dodge
that
jump
whole
ever.
issue. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
Uh,
Which it's just funny because it's again it goes all the way back to the ones twos debate, which is the other big issue with the game, which is like what's going to be the preferred mode? Like, what is the community going to settle on? Because it's kind of going to boil down to us at
mhm.
the end of the day, and like what will PFG start tweaking towards in terms of leaning? Because I feel like it's been leaning more one sided in terms of balance changes and whatnot, but um that might just be
Mhm.
my observation. I don't know how you feel about it.
Mhm. Uh, I'm sorry. Restate that again. I need to process.
Yeah, I'm saying that like with a lot of the way the game's been moving, it's been heavily leaning towards the 1v1 side of gameplay, not
Mhm.
necessarily the 2v2 side, which is like causing a lot of gameplay related issues. Because like on one hand, I'm talking about balancing and things like for teams and things of that nature, but on the other hand, I also have to account for like, oh well, there's the whole ones mode, and like the ones mode is, I would argue, more popular in its current state. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I've found matches consistently in twos and whatnot,
Mhm.
and I play twos predominantly, but when I see clips, when I see people talk online, when I'm in the discords, when I'm in the Reddit and just
Mhm.
watching gameplay, everyone's in ones. Like it's very, I'd be very hard pressed to find like people just casually picking up and playing twos.
So there's two important things to mention whenever we're talking about that. I do think that yes, you are correct in the fact that the balance has been has been geared a little bit more towards one's players, because like
Mm.
beforehand, even with how dodgy the game was, because of the nature of twos being more screen control oriented, the game still
Yeah.
functioned fine. Um,
Yeah.
how, however, I would still say the twos functions perfectly fine now. But one's definitely got a big overhaul to make it more manageable.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
I've heard some people complain that twos feels quote unquote unplayable right now. Bugsby is like someone who I've been in the stream of, and he's like a hard complainer of twos currently.
I won't speak
And
on Bugs V. I'll
okay,
let that
okay.
homie rock. I got. He doesn't know. Like I don't know him personally like that, but like I got beef with that whole side of the scene.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
I know there's a lot of drama in the multiverse scene. I try to
I
stay
didn't
out of it.
I didn't know there was drama like that. I just don't like how they move. Like respectfully, I just never liked how they move. They
Yeah.
feel they game grifters. I see it from a mile away. They were
Uh,
Fortnite players. They go to MVS. They're gonna go to the next big thing, then the
uh,
next big thing, and I'm like, I just pick a game. Like it's
mhm,
cool. I got nothing with Taurus. Respect. Thank you for pumping up the FGC, coming through for the game, etc. But like,
mhm.
it's a little frustrating because
Yeah.
they're the most outspoken ones, and it hurts game design and you
Mhm.
know
But
having
one
healthy
thing I
conversations.
one thing I have to clarify always, 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 anytime I talk about the difference between ones and twos and
Mm,
multiverses, is that while twos will still always be the game mode that most people recognize the game for as the real game mode or whatever
sure,
you want to
sure.
call it, um, the the biggest issue is that because of the nature of requiring a team or requiring a teammate, there's always going to be slightly less uh, numbers in a twos format, because not
Yeah,
only
of
do you have to
course.
worry about, like, it's so easy to just be like, oh, I want to play multiverses, I'm going to boot it up right now and play multiverses. But if you're going to play twos, you have to go through playing with randos, and a lot of people don't want to do that whenever they're playing a team game.
Right, right.
And then on top of that, even if you do have a teammate, it's no longer a question of like, okay, I want to play multiverses. It's now also a question of like, is my friend available to play multiverses?
Right, yeah, it turns into that
It's
whole thing.
yeah, so like scheduling and all that stuff is always going to make twos like more difficult to organize and more difficult to manage. So when
Right,
you see all these clips of people playing ones, it's because it's the most convenient thing to play at the time.
right, right.
Just
What
because of the nature of requiring multiple people in order to like play a team-based game.
Right, right. Which is kind of like something I brought up in my last video where I was like, I feel like there needs to be more mechanics put in place for the twos mode to kind of give it a buff, so to speak. I'm not saying it's gonna swing everyone over to playing with randoms, but there are things in place you could do to kind of mitigate the amount of people that instantly flee from it. Right. I mentioned having emojis essentially, which would let players know when to spike or when to support the teammate via D-pad or
Mhm.
whatever a button could be, whatever you want to swap it to. Down arrow on the D-pad, go for spike, like things of that nature, kind of like
Mhm.
a ping system. I mentioned voice
Okay.
chat, which I think voice chat is fine. I think voice chat should be a thing. It's in NRS games already.
Uh-huh.
It might get toxic. Who cares? It's fine. We'll
Yeah.
live. Voice
Mhm.
chat would be very beneficial. I also think invite to party at the end of every match would be huge. Being able, especially with the
Yeah.
rift modes they fixed, invite to party, meet people, improve the messaging functions, allow people to like talk via custom
Mhm.
chat or whatever maybe. Like I feel like there's a lot of things we could do to enhance
Yeah.
the social aspect. And to me, like these are things that I feel like should be kind of focused on as they move forward, because but before fixing all of the other stuff, like having the game function better socially is the number one thing, because I think that we could talk about gameplay changes and stuff all day till the cows come home, but like at the end of the day, for a casual perspective, the social functions of
Mhm.
the game are non-existent. They're
Yeah.
it's not Street Fighter 6, it's not even a Tekken 8. There's no lobby to like meet up at and chat and learn and get better, and we've been seeing it happen in real time throughout these last couple of years with these games. Guilty Gear Strive has essentially kept itself alive because of how great the lobby is, and just despite the
Mhm.
technical issues, the lobby's functionality in terms of talking with players and meeting friends, and I've seen people like fully go over to Discords and like make whole scenes out of it,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
of how great the lobby is, right? And like
Mhm.
MVS, a game that is like primed for that kind of content, has none of it. It has
Yeah.
zero of it, and it's so
Mhm.
frustrating, and it's like As much as I would love to see some of the gameplay stuff get touched, like they really need to fix the social stuff first and
Yeah.
foremost, before anything else, in my opinion. And I think I hope PFG knows that.
Yeah.
I think they know that more than I don't think I have to express. I'll put it in a video anyways, just cause. But I hope they know that.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
need that.
I can certainly agree. I don't think there will ever be a time where twos will be like have higher numbers than ones.
Yeah,
just because
no,
of the nature
no.
of the format, but you know,
I
do
just
think
want it
there's
to
a
be
lot
like
of.
played more, basically, or like give
Yes.
him more of a shot.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that. Oh, I was talking about old multiverses. Sorry, I got
Oh
so.
right, sorry, yeah,
sorry
we're good, we're good. Swing back to the
all right.
beta.
Back to the beta. A lot of players, whenever they see whenever they get hit with the complaint of like, oh, old multiversus beta was just a dodge fest. They'll just reply with like, oh, that's a skill issue, man.
Oh my god.
You have to
Okay.
if you just read the dodge, then you'd win. But the issue is that because of how the movement works and how difficult it is to like actually string a combo, like and how little the hit stun is.
Yeah, there's like no hit stun
it's
in that version.
yeah. Combos are basically non-existent in the beta. Like true stream, like you have to like read someone like over and over and over again to close out a stock. And like I've heard people cry out, "Oh, that's a skill issue. You just need to get so good that you can read them perfectly all the time, over and over and over again." And I'm like, you understand that like every time you see a cool clip, it's someone like winning the lottery. This is not the standard gameplay.
Right,
Like,
right.
and I'll see people and, like every time someone posts a clip, like I've seen like maybe a couple exceptions, but usually when someone posts a clip, it's like Beta Batman, and Beta Batman was especially good at catching dodges, and like he was the exception to the rule because of how battering works.
You mean the character y'all buffed to get to that point? By the way, you think I forgot? That's why I tell him all the time. Like, you think I forgot? I was in the threads. I watched that homie get changed in real time.
Yeah, and he just like battering was just insane at catching dodges. Like even if you dodged out, it really didn't matter. So he would just like essentially option select his pressure, and that was like the only character that could do that and like keep up with people. So yeah, I don't think it's a skill issue. I think Batman was just broken in ones, and it was ridiculous.
Right,
so
I
it
agree.
it just boiled down to the game. To kind of requiring a lot of guessing without any reward, which felt really unsatisfying.
Oops.
It also forced you to play like really preemptively because of how little in lag the characters had and how fast they could move around the screen. Like the threat bubble was the entire screen. They could threaten you from pretty much everywhere.
Everyone had some dumb stuff.
Yeah, so it just forced you to play really preemptively, and that was like unsatisfying because it didn't really feel like it felt like you were having to guess all the time. And it's like,
I agree. And again, it doubly didn't make sense for the ones players because like that game was it was what you guys were talking about. It's a dodge fest. Like there's no getting around that. Like you are literally just smashing dodge and you pray you can catch someone on it, and then you get like a combo that does like 15 to 20, and then you rinse repeat until the game's over.
Like the game time like difference between there's a reason why old multiverses is played on 2 stocks and this one's played on 3 stocks. The games were inherently way longer. The time to kill and like actual combos in this game have been like or the combos have been increased, but the time to kill has been substantially decreased whenever going from the beta. It's just like it made 90% of the old multiverses like beta 1v1 smashes very frustrating, and it was just a lot of like I'm just gonna swing, and if it hits, awesome, I'll try to hit confirm into like a very small string, or if it doesn't hit, well, chances are they're not gonna be able to whiff punish me very effectively without a hard call out. So
I agree. I get that. I'm in a similar boat. I don't know quite what the fix was to keeping the beta multiversus speed as much as I enjoyed the pace. But it the systems needed help, which is kind of how I described it. Like the main attacks and getting around in neutral and whatnot, like just how safe everything was. Like it's very Nick All-Star Brawl 1. You know what I mean? I'm just gliding through the air. I'm a feather in the wind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that actually is a good segue because starting off our suggestions for the fixes.
Okay, sure.
I would like to talk about a few changes, and I have them sectioned off in a few different ways. I have
Okay.
section one would be a perk change that I think would be pretty neat that someone in my comments suggested.
Okay.
Some changes to dodges, some changes to jabs, and burst option changes, and then overall engine changes. I have quite a lot of suggestions
Okay,
and different
okay. I feel
directions they
that.
could take it. All right.
I have my
Uh,
own select few in terms of just like overall game feel, so I'll kind of follow up with you when we get to the game engine stuff.
Okay, okay. So for the first one, perks, a lot of people are saying that like they really prefer the way the old multiverses would like move around and how you'd like very there was no like stall on dodge jumps or anything like that. You just immediately get the
Mm,
momentum and fly at people, right?
right.
Now, one thing that a perk idea that one of my commenters actually suggested that I thought was really cool would be a
Okay.
perk that would allow smoother dodge jump movement and allow you to be faster, but at the cost of dodge invincibility on the ground.
Oh, okay. I'd have to look in. I have to see like a visual. That's kind of hard for
Mhm.
me to parse in my mind. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of what that would look like.
Yeah, this is just
Okay.
kind of a suggestion. The only reason say that, like, and this perk would only work on the ground. You wouldn't be able to
Yeah,
like
for sure, for sure.
negate it. Like, it would remove dodge invincibility on the ground, so you could effectively stuff people out better, right? You wouldn't have
Right.
to worry about like you wouldn't have to worry about like guessing when they're going to swing or how they're going to swing or anything like that.
Okay,
You'd
yeah, that
just
makes
be able
sense.
to stuff it out. And like the reason why I said this perk wouldn't work in the air is because if you give dodge jumps back to people in disadvantage with like the old
Mm,
multiverses of movement,
mm-hmm.
it's just gonna go back to how it was.
Right,
Whereas
right.
it's just really difficult to like have any meaningful extensions off of it. So I think that'd be like an interesting addition for a perk because we already have the ability to like remove parry, but uh with the benefit of being able to make a platform
Yeah,
there
make
so
a
you can do
platform and
grounded
all that
move.
good stuff. Okay.
Yeah, so I think the idea of removing invincibility on like dodges isn't or on ground dodges isn't exactly out of the question if it allows
Yeah,
you to
no, it's
like
not the
up,
worst.
yeah, if it allows you to have like other benefits that would make up for it as well, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah, sounds good.
Another one I want to talk about with some dodge changes. Right now,
Ooh.
obviously, we know, and I'm not saying that they need to make all these changes. In fact, a lot of them are like either do this or do that, right?
Right, right. It's kind of
Um,
like what we were talking about. It's the KI thing. We're not trying to
mm,
find, the symptoms to the disease, right? We're just out here offering suggestions, you know.
yeah, yeah. I'm not saying that like, oh, the game will only be good if you
Yeah,
follow all of these
exactly.
instructions. No, they're just like, here, if you guys are wondering what we could try, you could try this or that or this. All right. And one of the
Right.
changes to the dodge is that I feel like you should lock players out of a dodge after uh for an extended period of time after whiffing a move. That would make
Yes.
it. I
Okay.
feel like if you were to dodge and then jab, you should not be able to dodge again for a while. You should kind of have
Oh.
to commit to that a
Oh,
little
you
bit.
would think. Oh, it's. I literally. I don't know. You might. Are you sniping me? Are you? You got the? Do you have the?
Oh,
What's it called?
oh,
A
do you?
rat? I literally put that in the next video. That's
Yeah,
literally what
yeah.
I said. Yeah, I was like,
I.
please make it so things are committal. You need to commit to
Mhm.
an action in this game. That's my biggest thing. I brought up your thing as an example in the vid. I'm like, if it's gonna be a slower paced game, I'm fine with that, right? If it's gonna be Smash Four,
Mhm.
I'm cool with Smash Four. But like Smash Four, like I have to commit. We can't just have like a halvesies of these variable speeds, so to
Yeah.
speak, because
Mhm.
like Joker, whoever the character, we should Superman is my main example because
Uh-huh.
I hate that character. I don't know how he's gotten so far, but like bro should not be allowed
Yeah.
to like just dash in, jab block me, and like there's no counterplay. Like it's just that rapid jab.
Uh,
There's no counterplay, and then dash out, and he's like, okay, what can I do after that? He can up me on stage, hit you. I'm like, oh,
uh,
I break shield. He oh, I'm good actually. I'm just gonna shield or what's I'm just dodge through. My fault, bro. I actually
uh,
wasn't committed to the action. I'm like, no, like stuff like that needs to be reworked, so to speak. I'd like that a
yeah.
lot. I like that a lot.
Dude, there's like talk on Twitter about like we need to bring like feints back with charge moves. I'm
Oh, I
like,
saw that. I said
no,
no. What?
no.
What? I almost quote retweeted like I almost quote retweeted y'all are insane. This community is crazy, bro. I saw that tweet when it went like right before it hit viral, and I was like, you guys are smoky.
No,
this is why
is,
player first games is cooking and not us.
Yeah, they took it out for a reason. We do not need that bag.
Yeah,
all right,
like is it the thing is I get it. It goes back to the skill expression argument. I understand. It felt good. It's cool, right? But however, maybe it's time to hit the PlayStation Store and look at other fighting games that might offer similar game, similar things. You know what I'm trying to say?
Having less commitment is not the route we need to go. We're trying to get away from that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I will cheers to the second option. The first one I'm so wary on just because of how jabs work right now. And like not having a ground dodge with the way jabs move at the moment, or like a takeaway of that. I'm like, I don't. I feel like that's just gonna lead to a perk that's gonna be left there. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, in its current state. But the second one, I will shake. I'll shake on that. I'll shake on that. That needs to anything to just add more commitment. Yeah, I got you. Anything to add more commitment, please.
Yes. This one's kind of a nitpick of mine, but another dodge change I'd really like to see is like, I want when you dodge to make you. I want it so that you're immune to the rest of a move. Like, there's so many characters in this game that are strong because they have multi-hits that if you dodge one hit, it doesn't matter because you're still susceptible to getting hit with the rest
now
of
I know you're sniping, bro. This is insane. I'm actually gonna I'm gonna bring up the script right now. Oh my gosh. I bring that up too. I'm like, why does everything okay, you're right. I said there needs to be intangibility, like actual intangibility. Like, it doesn't make sense that either because the way you said it is exactly why I get frustrated playing the game, because there's no clear-cut answer, right? And I know, like, in other Smash titles, like platform fighters, like I can kind of parse and see like where I'm getting hit and why I'm getting hit. And I bring it up in my video. I bring up Slap City, Rivals, and Nasby, and I'm like, the reason why I know I'm getting hit and why these moves are either dumb, BS, whatever, or really not that great is because they have hitbox viewers and all these other things, right? And like you could look and tell, and the air dodges are clear, and they tell you when you're intangible, when you're etc. So I'm like, I know what to do against these certain moves, right? Because I have the tools at my disposal, and also just pretty clear cut most of the time, animation wise. When I play MVS and I swear I am air dodging through bugs up air. I promise you.
Yeah.
I promise you. And that whole clack, and I'm dead at 102. That's the poor limited edition DualSense that has almost went out the window. You know what I'm saying? Like I get so pressed. I'm like, that's some dumb stuff, man. Like I get so triggered.
The most frustrating instance of it for me that I really hate is Black Adam, dude. That guy, you get juggled by him, and even if you dodge his up air, you can still get hit with the last hit, or especially his side air. He does like a 1-2 punch with the second one going up. If you dodge the first one, you're not immune to the second one. The second one's the one that kills too, by the way. So he's like following your dodge. You just have to eat that, and you're like, oh, I guess I just lose, huh?
Right?
Like,
no, I get it. I get it.
And you can argue that, like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have your dodge, the direction called out by the Black Adam. I'm like, no, it's stupid.
Right?
He threw out an attack, and I got.
No, I get you. Like, the option select I get hit by when I complain about certain things, like, oh, just parry. I'm like, if I speak on the parry mechanic in this game, I will be suspended. Like, I'm sorry, it's not great. Okay, I understand it, but the moves themselves and like how they are displayed to me as a player, like, they're not clear cut enough for me to trust spot dodge to get placed essentially, or like hoping I get a parry. Let alone the fact that if I do say air parry or something of that nature, and it goes through, or I fumble the bag, you're dead. Like, you're locked out. Yeah. You can't do anything. Like, they made the lockout higher because people were, I guess, falling out and getting parries for free, allegedly. And like, it's a whole thing. I'm like, it just makes the mechanic something no one wants to really interact with, which again leads to the dodge heavy meta. So it's like, I really don't know what the fix for that is. I don't know. I mean, they added the neutral dodge button, which is nice. That's a good step, I guess, in the right direction. But like, again, symptom to the disease, not the disease getting cured. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's almost there.
I think a big issue that I have, and that
Mm.
I do actually have a suggestion or a big issue that I have with the parry right now is that as soon as they added the neutral parry button so that you could like DI
Okay.
and also parry, they hard gutted parry. Like
Yup.
they
Yup.
it's like, bro, I felt like whenever I was in defense, it created like at least some sort of like thought process between these Finn players of like, oh, I need to like account for parry or like Superman just running you off screen.
I know
Like
what you mean. I know what you mean.
it's like when Superman's like carrying you off screen, the Sair, Nair, Sair. You're like, it's like okay, with parry, I finally had the option to be like, if I DI correctly and then parry, I can like
Mm.
force them to have to at least try to account for it, so I don't get touch of death. But
Right.
uh, but like they've nerfed it so that you can't mash parry out of hit stun, so
Mm-hmm.
people don't have to. So people still no longer have to think. I'm like, dude.
Yeah, that's my
Come
biggest
on.
issue. Like in ones especially, like I've been dealing with like anytime I play against a fan, like that's been the roughest one for me. I don't know if it's a skill thing, but like there are so many
Mhm.
times where I'm like I made a mistake and I'm dead at 40 like multiple
Yeah.
times, and I feel like I know where to DI the up B if you can DI the up B off top blast zone Finn's up B, but
Yeah,
regardless,
you can.
that joint hurts. That joint hurts.
Yeah, there's definitely like ways that you're supposed to DI for that, but like I feel like our saving grace for like Finn combos and Superman combos and these other combos that were
Yeah,
just
the
like straight up
carries.
straight up touch of death was the fact that we had parry
Yeah, I agree.
available. But
Right.
now we don't because they nerfed it out of hit stun. So like these combos that were like not true before are
Mhm.
true, and like back to how multi hits work with the dodge. Remember that same situation
Yup.
where I was like, oh yeah, Black Adam can just like throw out a multi hit, and even if you dodge like the first
Yep.
bit of it, if it's still out, you'll get hit by it.
Mhm.
That same thing happens with Finn, and that's why like he's one of the best
Yeah,
characters in
I
the
was about to
game
say,
right
like
now.
he's OD in this current patch, and it's a combination of factors. And like I said, I talked to I'm gonna talk about in this video too. Like it's the way the patch cycle went. Like they
Mhm.
brought some characters down that, in my opinion, shouldn't have been nerfed the way they got nerfed. I think there is other ways to go about it. Like Wonder Woman's my biggest. I might be sipping the Kool-Aid. I don't know. I feel like
Mhm.
I know you like the cooldowns and stuff, which I'm sure you'll elaborate in a
I
future video. I think
I
some of
do
the
plan on.
cooldowns are a little unwarranted in terms of how characters function. Because
Mhm.
it takes for some characters it takes, or rather they should be adjusted per perk for some of the characters. Like they take
Mhm.
away essential movement options in ways a certain playstyle is, which to me is the benefit of Multiversus. You're able to play so many different playstyles with a certain character because of how the perk system rewards that, right? But when
Mhm.
you make overall like character sweeping changes, it adds to this weird feeling where now the character's being like kind of homogenized, so to speak, or
Mhm.
put in a linear spot where they can pretty much only perform a certain way and get their win con. Whereas before, oh, I had all these options, right? Like being
Mhm.
able to use the lasso and like sling yourself around the map, like, oh, dope. Like there was clear or trade offs for it and stuff of that nature. But other parts for kit were overtuned. So addressing that via like, oh well, this perk will have this cooldown and whatever, it might be too much. I don't know. I just spitballing. I think things like that would have been cool to see play out in terms of balancing, but instead they just like, oh, overall changes, and now Wonder Woman moves like that, and now other characters moving up in the meta because it's like, okay, well, we just won't play Wonder Woman. We're just gonna go play the other characters, even though the nerfs
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
weren't that crazy.
Yeah.
But it to me that's the culture that started in beta. And it's gonna get
Mhm.
people yelling, "We'll bring back old Wonder Woman," and then they're gonna hopefully not, but they probably will bring back old Wonder Woman, and then we're back at the seesaw. And it's like we're trying to
Yeah.
avoid this. Like I'm trying to,
Mhm.
we want progression, so to speak.
Yeah. Patch culture is its own
It's hard.
topic,
Yeah, it's
honestly.
hard. It's hard.
Mhm.
Little tangent, but
Mhm.
that's a whole thing with
Mhm.
MVS, because it's I
Mhm.
feel like they're gonna heavily patch it. They said every mid season, like every
Yeah. Yeah.
season two, we'll have a mid season update and stuff like that.
Yeah. They'll probably do like major patches like twice per season.
Okay.
So yeah, if I had to take a guess, yeah, because we're probably expecting another big patch. What is it, like 12 days from now? That's when season
Yeah,
two is
sounds
supposed
about
to
right.
start.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, around that ballpark. But yeah, yeah, patch culture in itself it's
Yeah, it's
it.
a whole thing.
But moving on to back into the jab. Okay,
Okay.
jab.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
I'm sure we can agree jab is a problem. It is too powerful.
Okay.
It does everything. So I have a few different suggestions that we could do. Not now. I'm once again. You don't
Mm.
have to. You don't have to go through with all of these. But one suggestion I have is that if you jab after, and I already kind of like covered like, you know, jab with the dodge already. But
Right.
another
Sure.
thing, another thing that you could do is like you can make it so that jabs after a dodge can only be branched into the other hits of jab, or like other moves,
Yeah.
on hit.
Okay.
Um, and also increase the whiff lag of jab one across the board. At least in Smash, jabs are like supposed to be like they're supposed to be your scramble tool that you like use to like get out of like a a scramble situation. They're your
Yeah.
fast option, but they don't give a lot
It's
of
your
uh, reward, and also like they're oddly high in lag for what you would expect a jab to be if you were to come from something
right.
like Street Fighter, right?
Right, I definitely get that. Like it's
Hmm.
I don't want to say it's your burst, so to speak, but in some ways it is. Like when I play like a character like Falcon, like that's my gentleman, right? Like that's
Yes.
my go-to, get off me. Like I need that. I hopefully can either get you in a disadvantage or take a stock potentially depending on the game,
Hmm.
and kind of move forward from there. But it's not like I'm going to rapid jet every time and then I'm gonna dodge away
Yeah.
and then continue the
Yeah.
pressure. I'm a jab into up air. Like, could you imagine if Falcon had
Uh-huh.
that? Sorry, could you
Yeah.
imagine if
Yeah.
Falcon had that?
It's Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But like the purpose of like making it so that jabs can only convert into their other hits, and increasing whiff lag on jab ones across the board is to
Okay,
keep the goal here is to keep jab as a whiff punish option if that's the route you want to take.
right,
This is
right.
one potential route you could take. The other option that you could do that would remove jab as the primary whiff punish option is to remove the ability to jab, like lock you out of jab after a dodge. That would make
I agree.
that, yeah, that could be a way that you could handle the situation as well. That way you could keep jabs as like, a good combo tool and a good way to handle scramble situations.
Hmm.
Uh, but you remove the ability to like you remove jab's ability to whiff punish with it. Now, granted,
Right.
you're gonna have to like add other ways to whiff punish, uh, in general to compensate for you missing that, because otherwise, how are you supposed to whiff punish
Yeah,
properly?
it'd
Right?
probably be around buffing other combo tools. I mean, like down
Yeah.
attacks all pretty much give, or like down ground attacks at least, all give you some form of pop up or extension or cancelable options. I think across most of the cast,
Hmm.
from what I understand, I might be wrong, but for most of the characters
Hmm.
I play, they allow you to do that. So that is a good step in the right direction. I think that'd be pretty solid.
Yeah, the big thing that I would really want to emphasize whenever it comes to changing jabs is that you can either make them less important for combos but better in scrambles,
Hmm.
or you can keep them as a good combo tool, but you have to make them more committal, right?
Right, right. No, I'm in the same boat. That I talk about that briefly. I really want there to be just more commitment options. The game's it's simultaneously loose but also pretty restrictive in what it can do, right? Especially as they've been
Hmm.
toning down certain options in the patches and stuff. So it's going to be hard to walk that fine balance of like, oh well, what
Hmm.
what's actually going to be good here? What can we utilize? What's too powerful, so to speak, in terms of ground approaches, which I feel like has been the biggest issue in the game. Is a lot of it's still either very aerial based or like trying to get a drag down of some sort into your jab string or
Hmm.
pressure to get your
Yeah.
ladder combo, or get pushing people off stage and like essentially not interacting and building up your resource or cooldown, whether it be Garnet singing or
Hmm.
throwing out Steven's shield, whatever it may be, right? Like that's kind of where the game, or Stripes throwing out his little seesaw, like, or saw blade, like there
Hmm.
the core heart of the game right now is built around that way. So we need something there, like what you're saying, to compensate for that. I basically just said like moves need more commitment and priority, which
Hmm.
I'll talk about later. But I'm in that same boat.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think another big thing is I feel like we do need a universal buff to just burst options in general. Like
Okay.
right now, the initial like way that the game was designed was that moves came out slow, and but didn't have like a lot of like and lag on them, I guess.
Word. Okay.
And that's even prominent in dash attacks, which are things that you would feel like should be your burst options. Like Jason's dash attack still comes out slow, and he doesn't go like anywhere. He moves slow during the whole time.
Yeah,
And
that's
like
true.
there's like a few exceptions that are like pretty good at like actually being burst options. Like Taz, his like dash attacks are really really good.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's a good one.
I think in general they just don't travel nearly as fast as they should.
Or
Uh
cover that much distance, right?
yeah,
Like I
or
feel.
yeah, you would think that like okay, coming from Smash, whenever you're like juggling someone and they're trying
Yeah.
to like get back to the ground, a big thing that they have to worry about, especially in Ultimate, is like dash attack. If you've ever been juggled by
Mm.
Ultimate Fox or Greninja, you'll know that getting back on stage is like, dude, they're just dash attacking my landing every time, and you're
Right.
like, all
Right.
right,
I was like, I know my
um,
fox cooks with that. Drag down fair. I'm chilling.
yeah,
Jab block. Don't
yeah,
let me tech chase you. That's an up smash. Like
true,
that's what feels
true.
great.
But yeah, I guess the thing I'm trying to get across is like they don't go fast enough for you to really be able to whiff punish with them, and they don't cover
Right.
enough. Like you can argue that some of them covered enough distance, but for the most part, you're just not fast enough when you're dash attacking
I,
with the
I
most of the
and I think
characters.
it kind of ties into the argument we were having earlier. Like, do you think? I guess asking you, do you think that's a speed issue with the game, or is it this an animation issue? Like, is it the overall engine that needs like reworking in terms of like dash attacks and certain moves flow and feel, or is it the animations on display that like are kind of hindering it?
I think this time it's a game issue
Okay.
with the dash attacks specifically because
Okay.
most of the time if you look at dash attacks, you don't travel any faster than you would say like walking or running, I
Right.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I'm in the same boat. Okay. Valid.
So you need I feel like if you're going to provide someone a burst option in say a dash attack, you need to give people a reason to use it over just walking up and doing a normal. Um
Right, and that kind of ties back to the jobs we were talking about earlier too, because like
mhm,
if you want more commitment, if we want things to feel and flow better, and like kind of get that speed in quotes back to what people were wanting, I feel like buffing dash attack would be a really good way to start walking
mhm.
down that path. Yeah,
Yeah,
I vibe with that.
it's also important to mention that like performing dash attacks in the first place come with their own kind of feeling of clunkiness. Like
Okay.
there is a somewhat of a macro to do a dash attack, which is just double tap forward and then attack.
Yeah, no, I know what you're
Um,
talking about, but it feels weird.
yeah, it still feels clunky. I'd highly recommend adding like a macro for it so that you can actually have like so that you can actually have like instant like imagine if you just had a dash attack button or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean,
I
Strive basically does that. It's not,
yeah.
that's a game
Yeah,
that benefits from it.
yeah, so I feel like that would help people want to use it more as a burst option as well, not feeling like they have to go through like this clunky startup through execution as well.
Yeah, and it's
Especially,
also a controller thing too. I know a lot of people playing keyboard and mouse, so they I know the KBM players don't necessarily have a problem, or sorry, keyboard, sorry, but they don't necessarily have a problem with how dash attacks function right now. But like for people that are on controller, it's vastly different, you know.
Yes, yes, it's very clunky for sure.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, just in general, dash attacks and burst options need to be buffed, and I feel like they would be a good way to allow people to have more burst options while also keeping commitment in the game because dash attacks are very high commitment, as you
Yeah, they're
probably
exactly. You're not gonna be
uh,
spamming that button. That's for darn sure.
yeah. So if you want to like make sure the game still has like whip punish options even after you take out like dodge jab, I feel like moving that power to dash attack and giving more reasons to use the rest of your kit is like a good step into that direction.
All right, bet. Yeah,
Uh,
I highly agree with that. Before, do you have any more to roll into before you start, or is this like it for the initial list, or is we getting to engine stuff?
we're getting into engine stuff. We're getting into
Okay,
engine
yeah.
stuff.
Before we start engine stuff, let me jump in
Mhm.
real quick because I have beef with the engine. I don't know how you
Okay.
feel, so this might be skill issue. This might be whatever people say. I also want to let everyone know I'm a semi casual, as they say. I'm a try hard casual. I think that's what Jay Wong says.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
nice with the game. I know what's going on. Don't call me out and say I'm stupid or anything. All right, I know how to play the game. I will dwarf your rank. but I do have problems with the game.
Hmm.
For starters, my first engine slash stage slash whatever thing, I think the stages are not good. I felt this way for a little bit. I know we briefly touched on it. It's mainly blast zones for me though. Like aside from the
Hmm.
platform, aside from everything, the blast zones in this game, from all perspectives, when I talk to casual friends, comp players, whatever, they just don't add up. Like everything's killing off the top for a very good reason. It's either stages are way too big or they're way too tiny, and there's no in between. And also, when I'm
Hmm.
playing hazards off, or even when I'm playing hazards off, they're just, you know, or actually, let me roll it back. First off, I'd like a hazards off queue. That'd be great.
Hmm. Yes.
I'm sure the court 2 is fantastic. Hazards off. I haven't played it yet, because it's in the main pool. I don't know if do balls and stuff still spawn. I'm assuming not.
I'm not too familiar with that. I know Townsville is great hazards off.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that stage is fantastic when it's not exploding and all that other stuff. But
Yeah.
keep in mind most of this is because we're playing in a casual queue right now. I know ranks coming, da 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 da. But like, it's frustrating. It's not just us casual players are also getting fed up. They don't like playing on those
Hmm.
stages. They don't, even when free for all comes up. I've played Dex Lab FFA and I've seen people just jump off. Like it's real. No one wants to
Hmm.
interact with some of those stages. But the blast zones and stuff, they always make a little not the greatest sense. My second biggest thing is, and this is the might be personal, might be actual gameplay. Since the second week of the game, I have had an issue with hitboxes and hurtboxes. I had the same exact issue when Multiversus beta was out, and I thought, okay, I'm either tripping or I suck. And then it was revealed that their hitboxes were literally pill shapes, and I'm like, holy, I've
Hmm.
never in my entire life seen a game in beta ship like this. This is crazy work. They added said individual tiny little pills, as you should, to these characters.
Hmm.
However, if you notice, which I pointed out back in the day, they are way too close to the characters. Hip hurt boxes, they're a little bulky, they're a little big if you look at, Smash is a big offender of this. You look at games like Street Fighter, some of them are just squares. Some games are just traditional square. There's a variety of different ways to do hit boxes and hurt boxes. Whatever. Game goes away, we move. Game comes back out. First week, I'm like, oh, okay, it's feeling decent. It's feeling. Second week comes up, I'm like, wait a second. Now I know Harley up B should be hitting here. I'm slowing footage down
Hmm.
and going frame by frame, and I have so many instances of Steven Dare just phasing through my character, of my up air,
Hmm.
my up B phasing through people. Jason, don't even my significant other main Jason. They just basically stop playing the game because like I can't play the game. My character doesn't work. Stuff would just not work, and it would
Hmm.
cost us two matches, and they just get burnt out and they're done playing. The list goes on. Now I was
Hmm.
figuring it's a rollback issue. Okay, it's whatever. My hammer just phasing through people recently in the last two patches. It's just a rollback thing. Then I started playing Rifts, and it's happening in Rifts too, where like my stuff
Yeah.
will just not work. So I don't know what the fix is. All I know is they need to find someone that doesn't have league hitboxes.
Hmm.
I know
Yeah.
PFG's history is like X Riot devs. Get them out of there. Get them out of there. I need
Yeah.
someone that has some fighting game sense, please. I can't take it anymore. Respectfully, you guys are doing a great
Hmm.
job, but like respectfully, I need to hit people. And I feel like that's
Hmm.
also been adding to a lot of the frustration with the game. And I mean this with the utmost respect. There are some moves right now and some characters that just don't function, or their hitboxes are unclear, or their hurtboxes make no sense, and there's no like tattletale, so to speak, signs of when it's appropriate to punish, when it's appropriate to whiff, when it's appropriate to kind of get stuff started, so to speak, right?
Hmm.
And that's my personal biggest, like, of all the fixes right now, that's my personal biggest gripe. I don't feel like I can punish stuff consistently because of how variable the hurt and hitboxes feel. I don't
Yeah.
know, personal thoughts on that. I have footage to back, but I also could be skill issue and it could be rollback. But you know,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of. It's hard for me to say
okay.
because a lot of the times where my hitboxes don't work, I just assume it's a Jason issue.
Yeah,
Because
no, that's what
Jason
I
is.
thought too. That's what I thought too. And so I started playing more, and I'm like, no, it's cast consistent. Like
Yeah.
some of these characters, like I'm basically, it's not Jason's the worst defender for sure, but it's a
Hmm.
cast wide issue. Like I've seen Black Adam's side, what is it, side B, the little ball thingy, that joint just
Yeah.
will go straight through me, not get hit.
Hmm.
You know.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I definitely think the hitboxes are really like inconsistent and
Mm,
don't really work nearly as well as they should a lot of the time. I mean, hell, Jason has a lot of used to have a lot of instances where he would just up B like grounded up B people. The little
yeah,
thing where he like does the ground the axe
the
grab and
axe swing.
slam.
Yeah.
There was instances where people would just die for getting hit by that, just to get teleported into the
Dang,
blast
bro.
zone. Just to get teleported into the blast zone, I was like, oh, all right,
Yeah, like
cool.
glitches
So
through the floor.
yeah. So it's it's they obviously the hitbox and hurt boxes need a lot of work. The
Hmm.
only issue is like I don't really know how I would suggest on
No, that's
fixing
the
that aside
problem. That's the
from.
problem.
Hmm.
Like I'm in the same boat where it's like I know it's an issue and I don't want to be like too critical because like then they move things to a new engine. I get it, right? I don't want to be that guy. It's easy to complain, but it's hard to work on the game, right, so to speak.
Hmm.
But it as a player, it is mad frustrating, and like
Hmm.
to me, it's the exact same issue that I had with the beta, where it's like it's only getting
Hmm.
worse as time's gone on. Like I'm noticing so much more stuff just straight not working as we're rolling in, and once again, similar case where like the game's like winding down, so to speak. Like there's players. It's like I don't know if it's that's why I'm like I don't know if it's a server issue or if it's a
Hmm.
game issue because we haven't really played much local.
Uh-huh.
Obviously with the local versus changes and stuff. But yeah,
For
that's kind of how I feel.
two-player first credit, I had this issue a lot more in the beta than I
Oh yeah,
do
for sure.
now.
Yeah, for
Cause
sure,
in
for
the
sure.
cause in the beta, I would get hit by like I think I have screenshots of me getting hit by bugs up air while I'm like below his feet, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I don't know what's up with that, but cool. But yeah, I think a part of it is the rollback and the netcode. I think
Mm.
like I said, I think it's a lot better now because ever since they swapped over to whatever system they're running now,
UE5, yeah.
yeah, UE5, and I think they like improved the netcode. Like
Oh
they
yeah,
made a
it's
whole
much
thing about
better.
it.
Don't get it twisted. It's
Yeah,
still significantly better
it's a
than
lot.
beta.
Yeah, it's much better. Obviously, it still does happen quite a bit though.
Hmm.
I haven't felt as much frustration with it, but I can see why it would make the game like very frustrating to a lot of
Yeah,
people.
I'm wondering if it's a. Do you play on PC or PlayStation?
I play on PC.
Okay, I'm wondering if it might be a console related issue then, because
It might
I might have
be.
to report or look into it more because it's like between that and the I'll get like a speed up slow, like speed up then slow
Hmm.
down back to normal gameplay like occasionally, and
Hmm.
I know it's rolling back and catching up, but it happens frequently. Like I capture it very often, so I don't
Yeah.
quite know what's going on. I'm assuming it's just servers being
Yeah.
kind of
For
bottlenecked in its current state.
Yeah, for me, I haven't had those issues nearly as much. Like I said, just because I play on PC, and
Hmm.
I don't really ever have my I never have an instance where my gameplay really like slows down and speeds back up during rollback, unless
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
like, or if I do, I have a feeling that it's like a very specific person's internet being bad. I
Yeah,
guess.
so like I said, it might be a console thing. I'm thinking so
Mhm.
because I'm usually getting paired with PlayStation
Mhm.
slash Xbox players. I'm assuming
Mhm.
I'll just
All
blame the
right.
Series S.
Uh-huh. Is there any other engine changes you want to get into before I start my little list?
For overall engine changes, aside from like some of the dodge mechanics and stuff you mentioned, I think that's the majority of it. Everything else is
Mhm.
like all my main complaints were hitbox, hurtbox focus, and a slight speed adjustment. But as
Mhm.
we kind of discussed, I'm not quite sure what are the best ways to go about that. I feel like everything could be benefited from an overall animation rework, like an animation
Mhm.
retuning and package. But that's I know at that
Mhm.
point that's definitely an engine
It's
change, so to speak, but it's a grander thing, right? That's a huge
yeah.
overhaul. That
It's
take
a it's
like
a big ask, yeah.
yeah, that take a grand total. So I don't want to be that guy. So I'll let you rock.
All right. So, first engine change uh addresses the fact that the platforms don't really feel too impactful or very rewarding to play around.
Mm.
Straight up add wave dashing. They've been hesitating
Wow.
so
Okay.
much to add wave dashing. I know it would speed up the gameplay. Well, see that's the thing. It wouldn't even necessarily speed up the gameplay to the point where it changes like how you uh it wouldn't change the speed of the gameplay so as much as people think it would.
Right.
I think it would just make the movement a lot more satisfying, and like because of how slow it is, you're not really increasing the bubble, you're just giving people more options and like more ways to kind of
Yeah, to
express
approach
their
stuff.
skill. Yeah,
What
I think
about
that.
to,
Mhm.
to cut in a little bit here, would you go about it in the way like kind of Ultimate did it, where they have like Waveland on platforms and things of that nature? I feel like that's a good in between because that's exactly what goes in my mind when I think multiverses.
I think I think it would be a really good in between. But I want to see slide offs. I don't want them to
Okay, sure.
be.
I
I
get you.
don't. I don't want the platforms to feel as sticky.
Okay.
Whenever it comes to that situation, or like, hold on. I think that you can have slide offs, and I do think that like maybe not the same way that Melee does it, but I feel like I don't want wave dashes to be as laggy, or I want you to be able to wave dash closer to the ground.
Okay, I get you.
In an ultimate, you know, I feel
Yeah.
like ultimate there's still pretty fringe uses outside of like I can land on this for a jab lock. And you don't really have jab locks like that in,
Yeah,
or
in
you can land on it
Multiversus.
for like a tech chase. You don't have that. So I feel like allowing people to like slide across the ground a little bit more, just a little bit more, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, having access to their toolkit like that would be fine, especially since we already have like movement increasing options like dodge attacks, right? Jason,
Yeah, sure. I agree.
one of you. So like, I don't think wave dashing would break the game because we already have things that would essentially function the same as wave dashing. The only issue is that the only difference is that because we don't have wave dashes, our movement on platforms is clunkier.
Right,
You
okay.
know?
I also would like to add, since we're on that vein, please give us the option to tap fall through, what's it called?
Yeah. Yeah.
Platforms. Just add it as an option. Like, I don't want to have to press down Y. I think that really
Mhm.
hinders a lot of the mechanics. And if they like
Yeah.
enable that, like they do the fast fall, I think it is, or yeah, drop down.
Mhm.
If they enable that, like they do the other settings, that'd be perfect. That'd be a good in between. I don't know if that's quite an engine change or whatnot, but that would be a good
Yeah.
system
The
change.
Yeah, they do have double tap fall through, but obviously it's still clunky on
Oh yeah,
controller.
no, that's not it.
Uh-huh.
That's not it.
Yeah,
I
it's not
agree.
it at all. I do think the issue is that they would need to, because there you can't really do that with PC players as much because you can't really have like dead zones like that. But I guess like they already
Yeah, no,
have
they have
the
double tap and stuff.
yeah
Like they
they
already have
already
their alternative.
yeah they should be fine. I feel like you can just add the ability for pad players to have like the sensitivity of like making the stick go all the way down, falls through the platform, and only a
Yeah,
little bit makes them
exactly.
crouch. Right? I feel like that's fair for the uh the pad players to have since it's already
Right,
kind of
right.
clunky. Let's see, but yes, I agree with that. I think that, and this is a bigger one because
Okay.
this would
I'll hear you out.
inherently, yeah, this one would inherently require a lot of new animations for like pretty much literally every aerial in the game. But at
Okay.
least on the normal attacks, you don't have to do this on the specials, but on the normal attacks, add landing lag. Remove them
Oh,
flying through the
really?
air. It feels
Okay.
That's a big reason people say the game feels so sluggish. And like, yes, this would add the necessity of you being able needing to time your moves closer to the ground and stuff like that. But
Okay.
like, you don't have to worry about in Smash. It's like kind of frustrating because like if you're not landing perfectly on the ground, the frame data for the aerial is like on shield. Uh, like for example, Falcon's Nair in Smash Ultimate is like
Mm-hmm.
it was like -5 or -6 or something like that. It's
Yeah,
been a
yeah,
while
something
since I
like
got
that.
it. Yeah, but like here's the thing: it's only -5 or -6 if you do the aerial and land the frame after you hit them with the move.
Yup,
Um,
exactly.
but but you don't have that in this game, so I feel like that's not like you don't have block like that in this game. So I feel like it's fine to have landing lag and
Hmm.
you'll avoid that problem. Um,
Okay. I see
and
that.
and the fact that people are able to like adjust, their movement and keep sliding after they whiff an aerial on the ground makes it inherently more difficult to whiff punish. You
Right.
know, so I feel like adding landing lag would help a lot of the issues in the game, not only feeling floaty, but also making it easier to whiff punish people. So I feel like that
Okay.
would help the game's health overall. But I know it's a big ask because you'd essentially have to
Yeah.
add you'd have to add animations for every normal attack in the air on landing
Right,
lag.
and that's kind of what I was gonna get about when or get to when I was talking about like the animation overhaul in terms of like just
Hmm.
readability. I guess that's kind of a part of it, but I didn't want to, like you said, I didn't want to tilt that line because like that gets into the whole like how big of an ask is this, like how realistic is this, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? But that's something I would throw on my list too. You know, I was looking more in the sense of like we just need more visible end lag, if that makes sense. Like on a lot of these moves,
Hmm.
because I feel everything has like a stop motion effect, as I call it, very like stop start, or start start and go to a lot of the moves. I don't feel like there's enough reel back or enough I guess visual flourish to tell me, oh dang, I like this guy's action is done, and if it's not that, they're air dodging and getting other extensions, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a big ask for sure, but
Yeah.
I think that if I were to ask something big, I think that would tackle a lot of issues. You
Okay,
know,
sure. I'm down.
um,
I agree with that.
mhm.
I'll
uh,
shake there.
another big thing that I want to see is that okay, I this is gonna sound really general, but I'm gonna clarify afterwards. So just
Okay,
stay
sure.
with me. Remove a lot of the resource regain after touching the wall shortly after leaving the stage. So like
Mm.
if you go from like the stage to the wall like
Mhm.
within I don't know like 3 seconds, I don't feel like you should get your resources back. You
Yeah,
know?
no, it's I call it rivals. Just do rivals.
Hmm.
How many
Yeah.
you get? What is it like 3 wall jumps or something, or 2 wall jumps or
Hmm.
something like that, and then you get your
Uh-huh.
up V or something of that nature, and then you can get back on
Hmm.
stage.
Yeah.
Just keep it
Great way
simple.
Great way of going about it. Another like thing that you could do with ledges, if you wanted to like make it so that people keep their resources after like touching the wall, just in general, is like just lock characters out of attacks shortly after like touching the ledge. I think that right now
Mm.
a big issue is that people are able to plank too hard, and the ledge isn't really a situation where you're like as scared because you
Okay.
know you can like swing back with your better up air in comparison to their worse down air, right? But
Right.
if you remove the ability of people to like swing after touching ledge briefly, people are gonna be a lot less comfy just losing all that
Chilling
stage
there.
control. Yeah, just chilling there, right? And it'll like add more impact to stage control and
Mm.
allow people to like get more benefit off of winning neutral and forcing people to the ledge, right?
Right.
Um,
I'll half meet you there to not to go too hard or counteract. Just due
mhm.
to the fact that the game already is like, semi clunky for a lot of people. So that
Yeah.
might add to that feeling of like, well, now we're never gonna touch off stage unless some of the other issues get fixed. Obviously, assuming all these issues get fixed, and then it's just gonna keep feeding into this ladder heavy meta that is already kind of prevalent
Hmm.
in the game in the first place. Um,
Yeah. I
I
I
it's
think
a hard line to walk is all.
yeah, I can understand that. I think my gripe with that argument though is that we don't want to reward players for losing neutral. We don't want to reward people
Okay.
for losing stage, right? And
Right.
I feel like at the current moment, uh while it may not inherently be like rewarding to players, they're definitely not getting punished nearly as hard as I feel like they should for just like giving up so much of the stage. It's
Okay.
definitely not like Street Fighter corner. It's not even like Smash
Yeah.
Ultimate corner. And it's like almost melee corner with how good ledge stalling is. You
Okay,
know?
everyone's Jigglypuff.
Yeah, it's like, all right, how do I really approach this situation? How do I take advantage of the fact that I won neutral and I got stage control?
Right.
Um,
I mean,
I
I
I think it.
wish. Oh, sorry.
Hmm,
No,
I think
I
that
just wish downers were better, and things of that nature.
yeah, yeah. I think that could help too. I think making down airs better or something along that line.
Hmm.
Um, or who knows? Maybe making them like this is gonna sound silly. Make
Okay.
them okay. I'll double address this because I had this in another point. Add intangibility dependent on your opponent's state. I think
Mm.
right now a lot of characters will just run at you and jump and like throw out aerials and they'll dodge away and all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it, and you And your option for that is to dodge through or just not be in the way, right? Because there's no shield, you can't like, shield punish someone like
Yeah,
that or
there's
like
no
block
poking.
punish. Yeah, there's nothing like that. So you have to like be out of the way or dodge through. Those are your two options right now. However,
Mm.
if you are able to read and like react to someone's jump in with like say a move where your upper body's invincible, that would make anti-airs a lot better. And extending back to what I was talking about, if you
Okay.
made down airs aerial invincible,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
then people might not want to like plank nearly as much. If they knew that like your down air is like going to make your the portion that's like actually doing the attack immune to aerials,
Right,
right?
right. Okay, okay. I like that.
So there's definitely a lot of options that you could do in order to make the ledge like more punishing. But right now the
Hmm.
thing is the ledge is just too safe right
Yeah,
now,
it's too
and
good. It's too good.
mhm.
Yeah, I'm in
um
the same boat. My biggest takeaway was kind of like what you said. Like I like the rivals concept. I like being able
mhm.
like I want to keep it. I think Brawlhalla actually has something similar too, funnily enough, where it's
Hmm.
like there's only so many times you can go to that ledge in Brawlhalla and like kind of hug the wall before you start sliding down. They do like the slide down. I
Mhm.
think it's like two or
Yeah.
three like wall grabs before you have to like send yourself back up.
Mhm.
And that game has at high level at least has a lot of crazy movement options to kind of get there. But the rivals ideal for like MVS would be I feel like a really good sweet spot if they're not gonna go if
Mhm.
they don't want to go one of the other directions. Like we gotta put
Mhm.
a stall on how many what's it called like ledges
Yeah.
you can get because like especially as a Harley player like you'll probably know like I
There
camp that thing like crazy. I don't gotta do
yeah.
much at all.
Yeah, there is a stall on it, but it's not nearly impactful.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
It doesn't come into play nearly as fast as it
Hmm.
should.
I found it
Um,
literally the other day and I was like, oh, that's in the
mhm.
game, cool.
Yeah. Uh, Another thing, and some people will hate me for saying this. They gotta
Oh,
revert
okay.
Perry back to how it was, man. I
Dang, was it that
like,
bad?
dude, it's that bad. There's so many
Okay.
characters that can just like, okay, it was so cool seeing Perry being added to the game because I was like, oh, this is so awesome. Now, like, the aggressor has to like think a little bit more before like
Right.
just like touch deathing you, right? This this
Okay, sure,
this
sure.
like decentivize the mashing that was like so prevalent before on your as soon as you got that like advantage state, and it like
Mm.
require it forces the person who gets the advantage to like there's never going to be an instance where you get one tapped. You'll always get like an instance where you can reversal the situation, and it kind of created this like interesting dynamic between
Sure, sure.
the attacker and the defender where both players were like still locked in the whole time, right?
Right, right. Yeah, very, very
Um
killer instincts.
mhm. Yeah, but when they like made it so that you can't parry after a while after being in hit stun, that made parry pretty much useless. Uh
Yeah, yeah.
because
That was my big takeaway.
there's like all those combo strings that were just barely not true that Perry was able to like save you and create this like dynamic of like will he won't he parry and like fishing for parry punishes and all that stuff
Mm.
got removed. Like Finn is now just able to like yeah, sure, his up air nair up B combo is like not true, but if you're trying to
Right.
dodge through it, like I mentioned before with the multi hits, because hit's a multi hit, the last hit can still scoop you and kill you. So even if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
so it just kind of allows him to just kind of like mash on you, and you're like, oh, okay, I have to like there is counterplay. You can like DI out on a lot of the instances or like choose to
Yeah, I've
there's
tried
DI
it.
mix there. Yeah, there's DI mix there to like prevent yourself from just getting one tapped, obviously. But like parry was such a cool mechanic for like both the aggressor and the defender because not only was it like, dude, I remember seeing someone get so mad because like he was playing Finn and he was like boxing out the Shaggy until he got to like 100, and then
Okay.
the Shaggy like read him like running in jab. The Shaggy did like down air up down air up tilt up air, and
Okay.
then and then the Finn was like, oh shit, and then he did the parry, and then Shaggy waited for the parry and like upbeat him. The Finn was
That's
like, this
cinema.
game's yeah, yeah. The Finn was like, this game's so stupid. I died in one interaction. I'm like, not really. You died in like 3 wrong guesses there. Like, not only did he
Mm.
hard read you like running in to jab, and he like anti-aired it, or he like whip punished it with
Yeah,
down
with
air.
punished it and all that.
Yeah, he like was able to like do the down air up tilt. Oh yeah, he read a dodge first. And
Oh,
then
okay. I was gonna say, wait.
and then,
Okay.
yeah, and then he did up tilt up air, and then he waited for the parry, and then did up B, and it's like,
Dang.
I watched that, and like, yeah, Finn probably shouldn't have died at 0 there, but he got owned 3 times in a row back to back. So
Okay.
I
See,
get it, right?
See, it's funny you say that, right? Because I say the same thing with the tag games. It all circles back. You know what I mean? I'm like, I feel like I win in this interaction. I outplayed like 3+ times before we got here. You know what I mean? And then you happen to get TOD'd, and like I'm sure that's how the Finn player feels. They got hit with ZMC, and they're like, gosh darn it. Gosh darn it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
No, but kind of on that point, like I definitely see that angle. I think the parry mechanic and what it introduced was very unique. In the sense that it's a platform fighter that's gonna kind of let you do more things on your defensive options, so to speak, right? Which is very hard to do. Not a lot of platform fighters are doing that, aside from like Slime Burst and whatever the heck RR Rushdown Revolt was. So it was really dope to kind of see MVS experiment with it, and it's kind of a shame that they got rid of it so fast, because I'm not deep in the comp space for this particular game, because I kind of fell off after like the first initial like 2 weeks of tournaments, so to speak. So I don't know like how bad it was getting the parry mechanic, but I figured it couldn't have been that. I guess like that egregious to warrant such a harsh change, in my opinion. I think it was a system change that kind of skewed the game in a weird direction.
Like I see the idea that like people were complaining that people were just like mashing parry and disadvantage, but I don't feel like the answer was to basically remove the ability to parry and disadvantage. I think the answer was more so to make parry more of a commitment on Whiff. I feel like I don't know, but yeah, I want them to revert parry back, and if they want to add more Whiff on parry, go for it. But
right,
removing the mind game that was parry, I feel like it just wasn't the play. It just removed a lot of the depth of the advantage and disadvantage state. And when you're talking about multiverses, one of its biggest issues is not having a lot of depth, because dodge jab central. You kind of need all the depth you can get.
Yeah, no, I get you. That's been my biggest complaint. I agree.
And then I have a few like little things that I don't really warrant a ton of explanation. For example, move the camera out in ones, and like you could argue that you could reduce the hit pause in 2s, because like they did it for 1s, and 1s does feel better because of it. My friend Jazz still complains that the hit pause in 2s is still too much, because like there's more of a chance that, like, for example, if like Black Adam hits like one teammate with like clap or something, there's like your other teammate can accidentally run into it and stuff like that.
That's what you guys are talking about. I don't know what you guys called that. I hate that thing. I know.
Yeah.
There's too many, especially with stages like Scooby's Mansion and stuff like that. There's too many stages that extend the length of hitboxes, and it's whack. Like that should have got addressed a while ago. I agree.
And they did revert it. They did lessen it in 1s, and 1s does feel much better. Yeah, 1s does feel much better for it. Now, whether or not you think it's a problem in 2s or not, that's completely subjective. But yeah, I could see 2s having a little reduction in hit pause.
All right.
Let's see. There's also a bit of a rework. I don't really know if I want to say.
I was gonna say you might want to save that for the secret tech. You know what I mean, or for later.
Well, no. I was talking about they reworked a specific way that multiverses work, going from the beta to the full release. And I get why they did it, but it doesn't feel satisfying. And I feel like if we go back and we add the landing lag, this won't be a problem.
Oh, okay.
But the idea is that when you use certain moves in multiverses, your momentum gets halted, like insane. Like I
Yeah.
don't,
Okay.
and I don't know if you've ever done like a down air or something while
I
trying
have.
to like approach with it. You stop it as soon as you
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
down air.
You're like
It
with
is.
Harley, it's like that's why I have the glove control because you're just floating. It's weird.
Hmm. Yeah, it just feels really unsatisfying, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that if you were to add landing lag, you wouldn't need the necessary to have that momentum halting mechanic because there'd
I
be,
agree.
people would be like stuck in place once they land rather than like as they're trying to throw out an aerial, which makes it really unsatisfying and
Right.
yeah. Um
Okay.
there's there all right, I have two other things. One of them
Sure.
I can do really quickly and the other one, well, I can do
Might be
both of
more
them really
involved.
quickly.
Okay. Okay. We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Uh First off, I don't know if you know, but there is a hit stun not modifier for how heavy your character is.
Huh?
Or
I was not
yeah,
aware of this. Okay.
yes, there are combos that are true on characters like Tom and Jerry, Gizmo, Harley that
Oh, that
aren't
explains so
true
much.
on characters like Iron Giant, Black Adam, or Jason.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. That explains it. Because I go for Harley stuff on like Iron Giant, it just doesn't work. For example.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's like so many instances where like, and at first I thought it was just an Iron Giant thing, like, oh, he has this secret passive to help him not get comboed as hard in twos or something. But
Okay.
no,
Sure.
it's like a universal mechanic of like some combos just aren't true on heavier characters, but they are true on lighter characters. Um, and it's very weird, and it's not like I don't know. I feel like you could argue it's like a balancing decision because lighter characters are like harder to catch and heavier characters are usually slower and like easier to catch. But at the
Okay.
same time, it's like really unintuitive and it makes like it creates like another awkward hurdle for players to overcome whenever they're like, all right, I
Mm,
need to know my combos not just for Gizmo and Harley. I also need to know what combos I should do against Iron Giant and Black Adam. And it's
right.
like,
Right.
and Superman, of course, too. Like,
I was about to say, I feel like Superman's the one I run into the most that has that issue because I promise I'm
yeah,
doing stuff, he just falls out of it, and I'm like, huh? Okay.
yeah. It's a really annoying thing, and it's not addressed anywhere. Players had to like find out somewhat recently. It's just
Okay.
annoying, and I don't think it needs to be in the game.
Sure, sure. I
I
agree.
I get why they added it, but it's not a good idea
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
practice. Um, and for my last point,
Okay.
I I think they can increase game speed slightly,
Slightly.
slightly,
No,
not too
we're on
much.
the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm shaking again. We're all in the same
Mhm.
boat there. I as
Mhm.
long as they increase the game speed a little bit, I am down. Not too
Yeah.
much. That's what I'm
Mhm.
arguing. I don't want it to be crazy fast. I'm asking for ult.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I'm asking for
Yeah.
ultimate speed, not Smash
Mhm.
4, right?
Yeah, and that's
Um
fine. I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I just want to be a little bit
Mhm.
quicker. That's pretty much it, you know. And also, like
Mhm.
you already kind of addressed some of the issues I have, like with the dodge, like either buff the
Mhm.
intangibility on it or make it so I can actually punish dodges more consistently. Whether it be adding more whiff on moves or hit pause, whatever it is. I don't know all the technical terms, sorry, but whether it be making the moves just more approachable for a general player, that'd be dope. Because I
Mhm.
feel like there's way too many instances in both. Again, I'm also speaking from like solo ones, whatever perspective too, where you just go for stuff and it's like everyone's just chasing each other 24/7. Like I
Mhm.
don't really have another way to explain it aside from we are all playing the endless Tom and Jerry game, and Tom and Jerry's on screen.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure out how we got
honestly.
here.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think those are actually pretty solid list of changes and stuff to fix. Thankfully, some of them are already included in future stuff I'm working on. So
mhm.
we will probably have some crossover there. Just as a heads up, no ripping.
Mhm.
I get in my personal thing. I get to some individual character changes, like to kind of off of the recent patch we had. But I think we're gonna scale that section back for a better conversation talking point because after this I realized, oh wait, you know what, I don't want to like have the video get dated by another patch, so
Uh-huh. Dude, yeah, I've
just talking about it, I'm like I need to rewrite some stuff and re-record instantly because I don't
I
want patch 3 to hit and like all that stuff's valid.
Hey man, I've already had to rewrite parts of my next script talking about cooldowns because like the primary point I use for a character who's like balanced around like a cooldown specifically is like Bugs Bunny safe, and I as soon as that patch came out and that move got gutted,
Yup.
I was like, ooh,
Yeah, I was like,
there
oh,
goes.
wait a second.
Uh-huh.
No, I feel that it's a rough situation. I think so far though that about does it for us here. I think we covered a lot about Multiversus, so I'm think we kind of brought some perspective there. Someone who's kind of falling out of love with the game currently, to be brutally honest, you know, I think I'm gonna take a break during season 2. I hope there's some cool characters get added. That might entice me to come back. We'll see. No leaks, please. I don't keep up with leak culture.
Yes,
I try to, you know, I try to be respectful to the devs. Stop data mining. It wasn't cool in Smash 4. It wasn't cool in all. It's not cool now. I like being surprised. But also on top of all that stuff, you know, game's just not really in a spot that I'm enjoying at the moment, and I don't have my duo partner either. Kind of like you were talking about earlier. Ones is not fun for me. I never enjoyed the ones mode of MVS, and my duo partner is basically done with the game. Because of all the issue, well, you know, their own issues on top of like they just don't like the feel of the game anymore. They're kind of you know gritting their teeth as we played. So that's kind of part of why I'm like I'm done for now. You know, I'm done for now. Hopefully season 2 has some dope stuff. I don't think it'll be enough to bring me back fully because system mechanics are getting like reworked. I don't think so, at least for season 2. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm thankful that we could provide some perspective, I hope, in terms of patch culture and what's what's going on, some potential engine switches and some gameplay changes that would vastly benefit the game. Not all again, all of these are suggestions. They don't have to be done. I also want to emphasize, don't take the word for gospel. I said all the time with the content creators, we're just people that have opinions on games because we're passionate and we have fun. You shouldn't like be on Twitter fighting words with our words. We would not. I know about you, my fault. For me, at least, I don't condone that. I think you guys should form your own opinion, of course, on your own stuff.
Agree.
And all that jazz, because it creates a very toxic culture. I've literally seen some of my like talking points get used in the Reddit threads and stuff. I'm like, it's personal. It's not like that. I don't want it to be used like that. You know. It's just my take.
I've heard more and more people say that Multiverse is a Street Fighter and Melee is Marvel, and I'm like,
yeah,
guys,
it's over. It's over. I talked about that, or like I wanted to put a comment out because like that's kind of the dangers of it, right? Like and to tie back earlier in the stream, Korea Gaming, but more buffs. You know, it's all part of that content cycle. You know, so. Just be mindful as the viewer of what's going on. Also, thanks for letting me offer my perspective on fighting games and kind of I know you're in the culture, obviously. You know, they did kind of help flesh things out a bit for me there. But you know, just at least from the other side, the tag games, the faster pace, the anime fighters. You know,
of course, I needed to be educated in those for sure. Because that is not my area of expertise for sure.
Yeah, no problem. You know, I also am a big Lore Night enjoyer, so I was there for that. I watched a lot of G-Unit, Majin Obama, all those guys. I started anime stuff around like 2017, 2018, 2017. So like basically as they are on their way out, but it was also the Renaissance. Like Exard Rev 2 was out, CF was out, like all that good stuff. So you know, we were entering that Half-Life state before that Dragon Ball FighterZ, the accessibility arc started, as I call it, with Grand Blue, BB Tag, Dragon Ball, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, hey man, thanks for letting me on. I think
yeah, of course.
I think I needed some closure from that last video because I feel like I got so much wrong, and I like after I put out the video, I was like, oh my god, this is ass. I'm gonna sound like I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Right. And that I feel that's mad frustrating, you know, because as a fellow fighting game player, I can understand where you're coming from, right? And that's why I was like, a lot of this is like beginner, as I said, beginner speak. Like you definitely got to grasp. You definitely have a love for the scene and just the games in general, but. We just needed some fleshing out, and that's what this was here to provide, you know, and also hopefully offered a healthy, insightful look into, speed on various games. How do you determine speed? And honestly, the new question, at least for me, I know you probably come to your own conclusion, but like maybe we have different determining factors. Maybe we should start determining how aggressive systems are versus how fast-paced the games are, right? Because that's kind of what the heart of what it boils down to, and SF6 is inherently, faster and more aggressive because of the system mechanics it has versus like like a Third Strike, which is also faster and aggressive in its own ways at the time, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a very very insightful convo here. So thanks for coming on to the tiny little show that I just started.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad I could come on here, and like I said, I definitely needed to clear the air about a lot of the stuff in my video.
Yeah,
So
of course.
I was happy that I was given the platform to do so.
Yeah, of course, no problem, no problem. And feel free to use everything that's talked about here. I don't know if the VOD will be up on Twitch. The VOD will also be available on YouTube. It should be able to download instantly, so it should be high quality if you use like JDownloader 2 or something like
Hmm.
that. So if you ever want to rip any of your talking points or whatever and all that good stuff, feel free to. Or I could send you over a Google Drive because I've recorded the whole joint.
All right, awesome. That sounds good.
Yeah, of course, of course. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna get out of here. I haven't eaten yet. I'm mad hungry. I also gotta
Yeah,
finish editing
same.
a video for the fighting game go soon. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you once again for coming on RPS. I wish you the best, and yeah, you guys
Mhm.
take care.
All right, peace out, guys.